This boy was stuck at level 0. His name was Itsuki. On the day of awakening, everyone gained extraordinary abilities, but when it was his turn, the students laughed. The crystals shone, and nothing happened. In reality, Itsuki had awakened a monstrous ability. Even though he was stuck at level 0, he could analyze his enemy's abilities and infinitely increase his own stats. And so, Itsuki became the genius of the academy, bringing all the nobles to their knees. Suddenly, rifts called abysses began to appear all across the planet's sky. Soon after, an energy barrier formed, trapping people in the city. Monsters known as demons emerged from the portals, led by Linga, the demon of ruin. With that, they began a terrible and merciless slaughter against all of humanity. A desperate father throws himself in front of the monster to save his son, screaming for him to run. The scene was pure chaos, with civilians running and trying to escape the creatures in the streets. One of the monsters, covered in blue flames, lets out a terrifying roar amidst the destruction. The creature then prepares an energy attack, aiming for a defenseless girl in the middle of the street. But at the last second, someone saves young Itsuki, pleading for him to get away from there. The scream of his name echoes in his mind, bringing back the pain of that day. Back in the present, a friend nudges him, asking why he was so spaced out. She gives him a suspicious look, wanting to know if he was really okay. But then she notices a tear on his face and asks why he's crying. Just then, two boys approach and start making fun of the way he dresses. It's explained that after these attacks, humans with powers known as the Awakened began to appear. His classmate explains that the man there is Izumi Hento, a famous general from the continent. Itsuki is lost in thought as the boy says that Izumi was the first awakened in history. On top of that, he's known as the Light of Hope for being the strongest. A recent study shows that normal people can awaken by touching a type of monolith. The man on stage then announces that they are there to give everyone that chance. Suddenly, a giant monolith emerges from the ground, glowing with powerful energy. All the students go wild, shouting and celebrating the chance to gain powers. Itsuki's friend turns to him, super excited, saying the moment has arrived. He then runs off to the line, while his female friend tells Itsuki to wait for his turn. But inside, a dark aura consumes him, revealing a frightening determination. With a wicked smile, he thinks that the day he's been waiting for has finally come. The ceremony begins, but the first student to touch the monolith fails to awaken. The other students get nervous, since not even the school's best athlete could do it. The security guard just impatiently tells the next person in line to step up. The crowd starts to worry, thinking that no one from their school will awaken. The guard then calls the next in line, a bully named Oishi Hikaru. The students get worried, as it would be a nightmare if that guy got powers. But suddenly, the monolith glows and blue lightning surrounds the bully's body. A status screen appears, revealing he is a very strong thunder elemental. A woman in armor informs her superior that they have finally found a promising awakened. With an arrogant smirk, the newly awakened boasts about being the first one from there. But out of nowhere, our protagonist walks by and bumps into him without even a sideways glance. The bully gets furious, yelling and asking if Itsuki wanted to die for touching him. The crowd whispers that it's over for him now, for picking a fight with the wrong person. From above, the observers sense an incredibly intense emotion coming from our hero. He touches the stone, thinking that his determination comes from the hatred he feels for the monsters. At that moment, the masked man's eyes widen, sensing a power that shouldn't exist. A giant and powerful spiritual image manifests behind our protagonist. The monolith reacts with full force, unleashing an energy that shakes the entire structure. Then, this energy explodes upward, creating a massive lotus flower above the school. Everyone is in shock at the energy flower, which is hundreds of times larger than the other one. His friends celebrate joyfully, shouting that he finally managed to awaken his power. From above, the observers are stunned, as this is the sign of a destroyer. The bully has a look of pure hatred, not believing he was surpassed like that. The scene changes to Itsuki, who finds himself inside the flower, wondering if he has awakened. Suddenly, a status screen appears, showing his class, Destroyer, and the gift Nirvana, but he panics when he sees that all of his attributes were completely 0. Just then, his special ability activates, increasing all his stats by 200 points. With a smile, he understands that he can now get stronger to annihilate the beasts. Outside, the light becomes so intense that it blinds everyone who was looking, and amidst all that light, the silhouette of our protagonist begins to emerge. Oishi refuses to believe what he's seeing, shouting that it's impossible. The woman in armor is shocked by his stats, saying he's a monster of a rookie. It's revealed that he has become the strongest, with all his attributes at 200. The crowd goes wild, celebrating that their school now has a legendary awakened. Enraged, Oishi yells that the protagonist stole the applause that was meant for him. Angrily, he releases his energy, preparing to attack the classmates who provoked him. He then decides to use his new skill, Silver Serpent, to show off. But the protagonist's system detects the attack, and immediately begins to analyze the skill. As the analysis progresses, Itsuki stares him down with a serious and completely calm gaze. The bully then unleashes a powerful lightning whip, shattering the ground on impact. Suddenly, Itsuki vanishes in the blink of an eye, leaving everyone confused about where he went. Then, he reappears right behind the bully, who freezes in fear upon sensing him. In a dark voice, he warns that if Oishi were a monster, he'd already be dead. The bully falls to the ground, trembling, while the others laugh at his fear. The skill analysis is almost complete, and a new aura surrounds Itsuki's body. With the analysis at 100%, he finally acquires the Thunder Wave skill. The light shines again, and one of his classmates even puts on sunglasses to handle it. Itsuki realizes he's pulled into this space every time he finishes analyzing a skill. The screen shows the details of the new skill, which can absorb attacks and increase his agility. Back in reality, a wave of blue lightning surrounds our protagonist's body. The bully is outraged, not understanding how he learned a skill like that so quickly. To everyone's surprise, his stats increase once more, showing his growing power. But suddenly, the sky darkens, and a heavy rain starts to fall out of nowhere. Next, a giant dark monolith appears in the sky, falling towards the school. The woman orders everyone to evacuate, realizing they are the target of the attack. With a frightened face, she says that fighting isn't their team's specialty. But the masked man points to the boy, saying he has more courage than they do. As everyone runs, Itsuki stands still, and the woman yells, asking why he isn't fleeing. The monolith then lands with a violent impact, releasing a sinister energy. Itsuki warns his friends that a monster is coming, but that he'll finish them all off. Desperate, they beg him to run since he just awakened and is no match for it. He just turns to his friend and, with a serious look, asks her to trust him. She agrees, but tells him not to blame her if he ends up dying in this fight. With a wicked smile, he thinks that his first enemy as an awakened has finally arrived. He feels lucky, as it's the same type of monster that killed his parents. A skeleton soldier emerges from the portal, and the system displays its battle stats. With a determined look, he decides to test the skill he just learned. The protagonist then charges the monster with everything he's got, unleashing all his energy. He unleashes a wave of thunder, shouting that he won't let anyone else die. The blow hits the skeleton soldier dead on, with absolutely devastating force. The impact sends the creature flying, and it explodes against the school building. The onlookers are shocked, saying he's too strong for a newly awakened rookie. But the masked man explains that this kid is on a whole different level of power. Suddenly, the skeleton gets up and uses a blue fire skill called Bonfire. Seeing the danger, his friends scream his name, completely terrified by the scene. Meanwhile, the bully cracks a purely evil smile, hoping he fails miserably. Itsuki's system begins to analyze the new skill, which accelerates when he's hit. The armored woman worries, because not even a level 10 awakened could withstand this. His body begins to burn, and he finally understands the pain his mother felt. A terrible memory shows his mother being consumed by the same blue flames. From a distance, the general watches everything, wondering if Itsuki is already using his full power. Even while on fire, he shouts that as soon as the analysis is done, the monster is history. One of his classmates despairs, but then gets excited seeing the blue lotus appear again. The analysis finishes, and the system announces he's acquired the Black Ice Wall skill. This new ability boosts all his stats and completely heals his injuries. He thinks that with his increased attack power, he can now break through the monster's defense. Back in reality, the Blue Lotus flower opens, illuminating the entire battlefield. From within it, our protagonist reemerges without a scratch, fully recovered. His friends go wild, celebrating in relief when they see he's alive. The observer is shocked, unable to understand how he can have both healing and lightning powers. He looks at his perfect hand, curious about the limits of his regeneration. Just then, the skeleton soldier roars in anger and attacks with its blue flames once more. But the protagonist activates his new skill, creating a black ice shield on his arm. Fearlessly, he stands still as the infernal fire rushes towards him. The ice wall completely nullifies the attack, creating an impressive clash of power. The energy blast is so powerful it violently throws the monster backward. Seizing the opportunity, he attacks with a lightning whip, slamming the monster to the ground. But the creature gets up, now wielding a giant sword made of ice and thunder. In a swift move, Itsuki appears behind the monster and cuts it in half with one strike. The students are speechless, saying he moved so fast it looked like teleportation. Even the observer is shocked by his immense power, wondering if he's really a rookie. It's explained that he can create weapons of any shape, making him perfect for both offense and defense. The battle ends, and his friends finally run toward him, shouting his name. His friend hugs him, incredibly relieved, but Itsuki just asks where Saya is. He explains she was just here a second ago, looking like she was about to cry. Itsuki scans the crowd but can't find her, thinking maybe she got mad at him. Impressed, The woman remarks that he defeated a monster that even a level 10 awakened would struggle with. His friend tries to calm him down, saying she probably went to the nurse's office, worried about him. Suddenly, a voice calls out to him, asking if he's Itsuki Tenma, which surprises his friend. The masked man approaches the boy, staring him down with an imposing presence. The other students start whispering, wondering if Izumi is going to make him his disciple. His friend then says he'll go look for Saya for him and waves goodbye. Then, the masked man faces him and says he's a very special boy. Itsuki turns to him, confused, asking what he meant by that. Izumi then reveals that the young man's heart is completely filled with rage and hatred. With that, he says he wants to know the real reason behind so much resentment. The protagonist explains that 10 years ago, his parents died to protect him. We get a flashback of him as a child, seeing a monster attack coming right at him. He says he was about to die, but an awakened saved him right in front of his mother. But he had to watch his mother get killed, saying goodbye as she was burned alive. The little boy panics, screaming desperately as he watches the horrible scene unfold. He felt guilty for their deaths, but something inside him screamed that this was wrong. The source of all that evil was the demon leading the attack, the one to blame for everything. At that moment, consumed by fury, the young Itsuki made a promise to himself. With a tear rolling down his cheek, he swears he will kill every last monster of that species. Izumi then questions him, asking how he can still cry with a heart so full of hatred. Itsuki explains that his right eye cries on its own, which keeps him from forgetting his hatred. Hearing this, Izumi invites him to be his disciple and join the Saviors Alliance. He explains that it's an organization created to fight monsters strategically. The members, called Saviors, receive training, powerful weapons, and a great salary. But Izumi warns that this treatment isn't free, as they risk their lives. The protagonist says he doesn't care about the money, because what matters most to him is being able to fight on the front lines, declaring that he wants to be a savior too. Izumi then reveals there's an annual tournament where only the top 100 qualify. He says the points record might not be a great benchmark, but he reveals that the record is 115,000 points, set a year ago by Kazunari Tsutsumi. Itsuki remembers the name, recognizing the strongest awakened his friends mentioned. The man warns him not to compare himself, but says his talent could rival Kazunari's. With unshakable determination, Itsuki declares he will surpass the great Kazunari Tsutsumi. The general is surprised by the boy's audacity, but sees potential in his confidence. He concludes by saying that someone like Itsuki will be a new rising sun for humanity. With a hopeful gaze, Izumi says the rising sun he's been waiting for has finally arrived. The scene changes, and they arrive at a futuristic building, with Itsuki asking what it is. Izumi explains that the monuments are portals, and if they aren't destroyed, more monsters will appear. The general says the building isolates the monuments that can't be destroyed and serves as a training ground. Itsuki understands it's a training ground, and Izumi warns that they are very dangerous stages. He then warns that this particular stage is the deadliest, known as the Rookie Graveyard. Then he reveals that Kazunari, as a rookie, cleared this stage in 3 minutes and 14 seconds. With that, the general challenges him, saying that if he wants to beat the record, he needs to do it in 3 minutes. Izumi then promises that if he clears the stage in that time, he will make him his disciple. As they enter, people are shocked to see the famous Izumi with a rookie by his side. Our protagonist realizes instantly that the man is far more famous than he ever imagined. He sees on a panel that the monsters inside are level 10, much stronger than the skeleton. The awakened whisper that he won't go in, thinking he's just there to show off. Unfazed, he walks up to the counter and tells the receptionist he wants to enter the stage. The woman asks how many people are going, but he informs her he'll challenge the place alone. Everyone in the lobby falls silent, surprised by the boy's absurd confidence. Furious, the receptionist yells at him to stop joking around, as this is no place for it. The crowd starts laughing, saying there's always one who gets the wrong idea and gets chewed out. He then explains that she misunderstood, as his only interest is challenging the stage. Tired, the woman tells him not to play hard to get, and offers her number for him to leave. With a dark look, he repeats that he doesn't care about her number and just wants her to let him in. Scared, the woman hands over the device, but warns that she's not responsible if he dies. The crowd mocks him, saying a level 0 rookie challenging a level 10 stage is suicide, but others comment that even with a special gift, his level is too low for this. He approaches the door, ready to scan his wristband and start the challenge. With that, his entry is approved, and the gigantic door slowly opens. Once inside, he prepares himself and says the promise is to finish in 3 minutes. The timer starts running, marking the official beginning of his great challenge. With an aura of power, he runs at full speed, not wasting a single second. He spots the monument, realizing the artificial space is huge and challenging. Just then, he senses the enemy's presence and announces that they're coming. A tree spirit attacks him, but Itsuki greets it with a strike of ice. He then creates an axe and splits the creature in half with a single blow. With a mocking smile, he asks how it feels to see their friend split in two. Several other monsters appear, screaming furiously and surrounding our protagonist. Outside, the woman asks why he sent him to such a difficult stage. Izumi explains that to surpass Tsutsumi, one must go beyond the limits of humanity. At that, the woman remembers seeing Tsutsumi easily kill a level 97 monster. She describes his eyes as cold and lonely, as if they weren't human. She finishes by saying his eyes were like those of a god, a divine presence. Izumi agrees the boy has potential, but he's still a diamond in the rough. He adds that if Tsutsumi is a god, Itsuki is a demon, his exact opposite. Back in the stage, our hero defeats them all, noticing his skill didn't even activate on them. But suddenly, a giant shadow appears behind him, revealing the true boss of the area. Without a second thought, the protagonist charges forward and strikes the creature with an ice attack. The monster falls to the ground, defeated, and he wonders if that's all there was to the stage. But he finds it all too easy for a place called Rookie Graveyard. Something was wrong. His system then detects the monster's regeneration skill and begins analyzing it immediately. Suddenly, he hears a strange noise, realizing the fight wasn't over yet. The creature regenerates completely, becoming an even bigger and stronger monster. The protagonist is in shock, as the beast healed even with half of its head cut off. He understands it won't be easy, as the monster's stats have increased absurdly. To defend himself, he activates his black ice wall and blocks the creature's attack. To stop the healing, he needs to deal massive damage, so he prepares a final attack. Using 2 blades, he slices the monster into dozens of pieces with a swift attack. His final blow cuts the monster exactly in half with surgical precision. The monster opens its eyes in anger, looking at him before completely falling apart. With a confident smile, he declares he's sliced it so thinly that it can't regenerate. He then raises his sword and cuts the creature once more, this time vertically. The monster explodes into several pieces, finally defeated by our hero. With the battle over, he feels his mana draining from the continuous use of the wall. But to his surprise, the monster regenerates once more, now in the form of tentacles. He dodges the attacks, finding it impressive that the beast hasn't died after all that. But he notices that each regeneration increases the analysis speed of his skill. He deactivates the wall to save mana and decides to keep his distance until the analysis is complete. But time is running out, and he knows he needs to be faster to win. He then activates his lightning and ice skills, planning to attack and defend at the same time. He understands that if he can't activate the skill in time, he'll die from lack of mana. But he faces the risk, thinking that if he dies, it's because that was the extent of his power. With his eyes glowing red, he uses all his strength in one last desperate attack. His strike hits the creature dead on, but it defends itself, showing its resilience. Despite all his effort, he can't pierce its defense and laments his failure. His body is pierced by the tentacles, and he realizes his mana has finally run out. But at the last second, the analysis finishes, and he discovers the skill doesn't require mana. A blue lotus emerges from his body, and he acquires the Lotus Burst ability. The new skill causes explosive area of effect damage, proportional to the mana spent by the user. With this, all his stats increase by 20 points, and his wounds are healed. The creature faces him, but he simply activates his new and powerful ability. The protagonist snaps his fingers, releasing destructive energy across the entire field. A gigantic explosion of fire and energy consumes the monster completely. The stage boss is completely incinerated, with no chance of regenerating again. With a satisfied look, he praises the power of the skill he just learned. He realizes his skill restored his mana, even after it had reached 0. Amidst the wreckage, a bright green stone appears, making him curious about what it is. Outside, the receptionist panics as time is running out and he hasn't come out. The general's assistant doubts he can do it in 3 minutes, finding the task impossible. But suddenly, the screen turns green, announcing that a new record has been set. The woman is in shock, wondering if he actually managed to complete the challenge. The panel then confirms the achievement, showing he finished in 2 minutes and 56 seconds. The door opens, revealing our hero on the floor, completely exhausted from the battle. Everyone celebrates, shocked that he survived and beat the great Tsutsumi's time. Itsuki gets up and asks Izumi if he will finally fulfill his promise. With a victorious smile and a bruised face, he officially calls him sensei. Izumi praises him, and the assistant realizes she hadn't seen her father this happy in a long time. The crowd understands he only succeeded because he's Izumi's student, but they question his future. Just then, The receptionist approaches, apologizing and handing him a gift. He accepts, saying her concern only proves she's a good person. With a simple thank you, he leaves her completely embarrassed and blushing. The assistant then calls out to him, warning that they're leaving and he'll be left behind. The assistant scolds him, telling him not to get a big head just for being her father's student. Izumi then says that with his current ability, he can go to an advanced stage. The general explains that level isn't the only factor that defines a monster's strength. He reveals that the most important thing is the species, as those without intelligence are easy. But there are intelligent species that are incomparable to common beasts and far more dangerous. The assistant adds that only humans possess classes, which define their powers. She warns him that an advanced stage has these monsters and that it's his next destination. With a sadistic look, he wonders if intelligent monsters feel pain when attacked. The woman is frightened by his terrifying aura, not understanding what was going on in his head. Elsewhere, a group comments on a man who controls the area and kills anyone who enters. One of the guys tells the other to shut up, warning that if the man hears him, he'll erase him too. We then see Reiji Kinoshita, the son of the boss who runs the entire North 4th District. One of his subordinates asks when he will leave, but he says he decides when. With a snobbish smile, he says that waiting in line is something only commoners do. Itsuki opens a detailed little box, revealing a small stone that glows brightly. The scene changes, showing them talking in a garden, and the boy remembers that moment. Izumi Hento then asks if he had ever seen a karma stone like that before. The protagonist remembers he has, as a similar one dropped after he defeated a monster. In his flashback, he held a much larger crystal, noting its green color. The blue-haired woman is shocked, as a stone like that shouldn't be there. She then offers to explain, saying it's basically an experience stone. It's explained that karma is released from monsters and absorbed to level up. In short, karma stones store this energy to be used as an item, but the young woman is still confused, since these stones aren't supposed to appear naturally. At this, Izumi Hento says it probably happened because of Itsuki's gift. The boy and the woman look at him, not understanding what his gift had to do with it. The man in the helmet explains that Itsuki didn't absorb the karma, but the energy doesn't just disappear. He mentions that the karma from the beast at the school was absorbed by all the awakened ones. But since Itsuki was in a sealed place, the energy solidified and became the stone. The young woman then asks how he raises his stats without leveling up, leaving Itsuki thoughtful. But Izumi Hento scolds her, warning that this is a secret you don't share. He says Itsuki can either sell or keep the stone, and that Ageha will take care of him. Before leaving, the man sets 4 rules, including keeping his gift a secret. With a smirk, Itsuki agrees and calls him master, accepting the alliance. The scene changes to a training field, where students are being blocked by some thugs. One of them complains, saying the place was reserved by the Kinoshita family for today. He threatens to call the guild, but a giant shadow with red eyes appears behind him. Suddenly, the blonde student attacks with a skill, flying towards the new guy. The masked man, Kazunari, simply stops the blow with one hand effortlessly. In the blink of an eye, he retaliates with a powerful blow that hits the student dead on. The blonde is shocked, yelling that his B-rank skill had no effect at all. Kazunari then says that it didn't even tickle, his eyes glowing with rage. The boy is terrified, thinking that this guy could only be a real monster. With pure fury, Kazunari grabs him by the collar, ready to teach him a lesson. Without hesitation, he lands a devastating blow, leaving the blonde student completely knocked out. The others are startled, as they realize he is Oga Take, one of Reiji's pillars. He then holds up the boy, and warns that he'll do the same to anyone who disobeys. The 2 students are left on the ground, and Uga warns that no one should dare to help them. Seeing the scene, his cronies start laughing, telling him not to be so rough. Disgusted, Uga throws the boy to the ground, showing he wasn't there to play games. But just then, Itsuki and his partner arrive, helping the injured student. The crowd is in shock, not understanding why a level 0 would get involved in this. Uga then glares at him, telling the newbie to leave if he doesn't want to end up the same way. Itsuki realizes that to get in, he would have to defeat that brute first. But he says he didn't have to, as his master taught him to fight for what's right. Calmly, he hands the injured student to someone else, and asks them to take care of him. A sinister aura explodes around Itsuki, and his status reveals his special class. Uga feels the pressure, not understanding how a level 0 could do that to him. He becomes furious, refusing to be intimidated by someone so much weaker than him. Uga glares at the newbie with hatred, unable to believe his courage to challenge him. In the reflection of his eye, he sees Itsuki rushing towards him, ready to attack. In a surprise move, the boy lands a solid punch right in the brute's face. The crowd is shocked by his speed, questioning if he really is a level 0. But Itsuki's fist hits hard metal, as Uga has activated his defense. He takes a step back, realizing the guy blocked the hit with the metallized skill. With metal hands, Uga catches his fist, then compliments the boy's speed. But he warns him that he lacks power, and throws Itsuki away with a blow that cracks the ground. Thrown back, our hero thinks he'll need to use his lightning ability to win. At that moment, his copy skill activates, beginning to analyze the enemy's technique. Itsuki readies himself on the ground, knowing he now has to fight with everything he's got. He understands the defense is tough, so he decides to focus on the non-metal parts of the body. The boy plants his feet firmly on the ground, launching himself into another super-fast attack. Uga then starts to taunt him, calling the boy weak, with no strength or speed. But Itsuki smiles, because now that the enemy has let his guard down, he would use his acceleration. Covered in lightning, Itsuki charges forward, giving the enemy no chance to defend. He starts to unleash a barrage of blows, and his skill analysis percentage climbs. The crowd is bewildered, starting to think that this rookie might actually win. Uga starts to panic, as the boy's speed doesn't even let him breathe. He tries to scream for help, telling his henchmen to stop just watching the fight. With no other choice, the brute grinds his teeth, deciding to play his last card. With a furious roar, he rips his own shirt, releasing all his power. The guy then metallizes his entire body, thanking Itsuki for forcing him to evolve. He explains that his defense now exceeds 500, making him a living fortress. With an evil grin, he promises a quick death as a reward for the help. The crowd is terrified, knowing that no one at that level could break such a defense. But Itsuki analyzes the situation, deducing that the transformation consumes a lot of mana. Uga calls it nonsense, but inwardly he's startled by the boy's intuition. With the analysis at 100%, Itsuki declares he's going to end it now. His partner recognizes the aura, saying that the blue lotus flower is about to get stronger. The crowd is astonished by the giant lotus, not understanding how it could defeat Uga. But the system shows that the analysis is complete, and he has acquired the piercing sphere skill. Itsuki notices that the ability ignores defense, and since the target is stationary, the timing is perfect. With his eyes glowing, he promises to shatter that absolute defense to pieces. Upon acquiring the skill, all of his stats increase by 10 points, making him stronger. In the midst of that blue aura, the protagonist creates a sphere of dark energy in the palm of his hand. He then aims the sphere and challenges the enemy to try and dodge the attack. The crowd wonders if a level 0 can break through that defense, but they have faith in him. The small dark sphere glowed intensely, concentrating an unimaginable power within. Slowly, the attack floats towards Uga, who stands still, waiting for the impact. Seeing this, the audience is disappointed, thinking it's just a weak little ball. Uga scoffs, thinking it's incredibly naive to try and beat him with that. He remains motionless, full of himself, as the sphere draws closer. The brute then warns that if this is his trump card, he's in for a pathetic death. But the moment the sphere touches him, it pierces his metal skin effortlessly. A burst of blood erupts from his body, and he screams in agony. With the guy on the ground, Itsuki explains he aimed for his arm since he didn't dodge. He then turns to the henchmen, telling them to stop staring and take him to a hospital. With a cold stare, the protagonist simply tells all of them to get lost. Terrified, the men grab their boss and carry him away without looking back. The crowd erupts in celebration, cheering for the rookie's impressive victory. Seeing his strength, two guys approach and invite Itsuki to form a team with them. The guys try to convince him, saying the monsters in this stage are tough to beat, but Itsuki finds this perfect, as it could increase the speed of his new sphere. They then pressure the boy, asking him to finally decide what he's going to do. With a serious look, he simply announces that he'll enter the dungeon alone. The people around are shocked, thinking the victory has gone to his head. Seeing his refusal, the two give up and say they'll look for another team to play with. His partner questions him about the mana cost, but he assures her he'll be fine. She gets flustered, saying she isn't worried, she just doesn't want to take the blame. Before he leaves, she warns him that the monsters move in packs and to be careful. He then places his hand on the panel, and his entry into the stage is finally approved. Inside, he realizes the number of enemies is greater than he expected. The stone beasts looked much stronger, with far higher levels and stats. After analyzing one of the monsters, he confirms its defense is quite high. With this, he decides to test the passive condition of his piercing sphere on the enemies. The sphere activates, releasing a dark purple energy ready for attack. He fires the dark sphere, which flies straight towards the stone monster. The attack pierces the creature with ease, defeating it in a single blow. With that, the sphere's speed doubles, just as our protagonist predicted. But right after, several other stone monsters appear, surrounding him completely. He considers them perfect targets, as they are slow and ideal for leveling up his skill. Using the doubled speed, he takes down two more, and his sphere's power increases again. He climbs onto a pile of rubble, but realizes his mana is almost depleted. Seeing more enemies approaching, he worries, as the boss hasn't appeared yet. With no time to waste, he decides he needs to defeat two monsters with a single shot. Itsuki then throws the sphere to the ground, creating a decoy to lure the two enemies. At the right moment, he leaps away, shouting for them to fall into his trap. With a fierce look, he yells that he's about to unleash the final blow he had prepared. The sphere shoots up, piercing both beasts and increasing its speed once more. Exhausted, he collapses to the ground, wishing he had a skill to recover his energy. Looking at the screen, he sees the sphere is now fast enough to hit any target. The system screen shows his sphere has reached the maximum flight speed buff, but suddenly, a giant stone fist descends from the sky, catching Itsuki by surprise. The blow hits the ground with absurd force, causing a small explosion of rocks. From the shadows, the stage boss finally appears, a level 15 stone man. Finding the monster too large, he activates his thunder wave to increase his agility. He runs across the beast's body, doubting his sphere could take down something that big. Then, he considers aiming for the head, as it might be the giant's only weak spot. Seeing an opening in the monster's guard, he fires his sphere with all his might. But the sphere was too small, and didn't cause enough damage to the giant monster. Taking advantage of him being airborne, the golem retaliates with a violent slap to crush him. Itsuki panics, knowing he can't dodge the attack in mid-air. With no choice, he activates his black ice wall to try and block the fatal blow. The impact is so strong it completely shatters his defense, breaking it to pieces. He's thrown against the rocks, admitting the brute was stronger than he looked. But his copy skill detects the monster's ability and begins its analysis. Even injured, Itsuki smirks, realizing the monster used a skill to become giant. The scene shifts to a mansion, where a servant receives a call and is shocked by the news. With a cold gaze, Reiji Kinoshita tells him not to make a fuss in front of him. The man apologizes, and his boss asks what all the commotion is about. He then explains that someone defeated the Royal Fang and invaded the training area. Furious, Reiji slams his fist on the table, wondering if it was an awakened one above level 30. But his servant informs him that the strongest are busy, and only rookies were there. He finds it impossible for a level 10 to win, but Reiji orders him to investigate further. Reiji says that's not necessary, as the dungeon takes a while, giving them time to get there. With a deadly glare, he yells that they're going there right now. No more excuses. The man is terrified by the order and agrees immediately, sweating cold with fear. Standing up, Reiji vows he will make them regret crossing the Kinoshita family. Back in the fight, the analysis finishes, and Itsuki celebrates that he won't have to run anymore. Just then, a bright blue lotus symbol appears on the giant golem's forehead. The system screen confirms that the analysis of the gigantification skill was a success. He realizes his piercing sphere has leveled up to 2, gaining a new effect. The passive speed effect doubled, but the best part is he could now adjust its size. Excited, he decides to test it right away, and the system also heals him completely. With this, all his stats increased by 20 points, making him stronger. He then uses all his mana to create the largest piercing sphere he can manage. The giant sphere then fires a massive energy beam with absurd power. The attack pierces the golem's body from top to bottom, completely destroying it. With his mana depleted, he gives a slight smile, thinking he might have overdone it a bit. The system confirms his victory, and his sphere's speed increases by another 200%. He calculates that in 2 more rounds, his attack will be as fast as a car. Holding the Karma Stone, he realizes the passive effects are much more useful. He then remembers that Lotus Burst also increases the range of his skills. We're told that the skill's passive ability increases its range with each defeated enemy. With this, he imagines that one day he'll be able to hit targets miles away. Outside, the big screen announces his success, breaking the record by 3 minutes. The crowd is shocked, as he beat the time of the monster Kazunari, who was watching. When he comes out, everyone finds it strange, since he was still level 0 and without a single scratch. His partner smiles, impressed that he broke the record and came out unscathed again. She comments that he was really fast, and Itsuki replies that the monster was weak. He then notices a glowing butterfly on her hand and asks what it is. The girl reveals her class is a Shikigami user, and that was her creature. Itsuki is amazed, saying it's the first time he's ever seen one and that it's beautiful. He takes the opportunity to ask about the classes, which surprises his partner. The girl explains that classes are divided into 4 types, and he's already seen 3. The first is the Elementalist, the most common class with the highest basic combat power. She recalls that one of his classmates used the lightning element. The brute from before, Auga, was also this type, which is why he used metal. Next, she introduces the second class, Shikigami users, who summon beasts. She introduces herself as Ageha Izumi, a Shikigami user, along with her jade butterfly. With a smile, she asks if he has any questions about the explanation so far, but Itsuki asks why her level is lower than her butterfly's. The question leaves her shocked, unable to believe the boy's cluelessness. She then calms down and explains that Shikigami also gain experience and level up. With a dark look, Itsuki realizes he just needs to focus on defeating the master. Ageha feels a shiver, frightened by the sinister aura leaking from him again. He breaks the tension by asking about the other classes she hadn't mentioned. The girl becomes thoughtful, saying that the third class is the most mysterious of all. She then reveals that his class, the Order Breaker, is precisely that one. Ageha explains that his class is a mystery because of its unique abilities, like Lotus Flower. We're told that others can control their body size or even create infinite clones. Normal skills range from C to S rank, but Order Breakers possess Z rank skills. She says that's why her father scolded her, as the secret of their skills is their greatest weapon. But she considers him an exception, since he uses at least 3 elementalist skills. Itsuki gets worried, thinking that if his master found out about this conversation, he'd be in serious trouble. He then asks about the last class, but she's secretive about it. With a smile, she says she'll only tell him when he meets a user in person. The boy agrees, and she takes the opportunity to let him know that the student he saved is doing well. She then asks about his plans, and he says he wants to repeat the stage to farm more, but she informs him that the stage has a cooldown and will only reopen in 2 days. Frustrated, he asks if there's another stage with a large number of monsters for him. With a mischievous look, she says she knows the perfect place for him to go right now. She introduces him to the Locust Desert, a place with an absurd number of monsters. She questions him about not having an area of effect skill, but he accepts the challenge on the spot. The group gets worried, but Itsuki says he'll be fine, even without an AoE skill. They're shocked by the boy's courage, but decide to leave to avoid any trouble. A short time later, Reiji arrives at the location, but finds no one to interrogate. His servant informs him that the target has already left, and Reiji is stunned by his speed. He can't believe his plan failed and is furious for being made a fool of. Determined to get revenge, he orders his servant to call a tracker to hunt the boy down. With deadly hatred, he vows to capture him alive to make him suffer greatly. Meanwhile, a wounded man hides in an alley, regretting that he accepted the mission. He celebrates his narrow escape, saying he would have died if he hadn't been fast. Thinking he's safe, he relaxes, but a growl startles him from the darkness. A giant wolf with red eyes leaps toward him, ready to devour him. The beast bites him without mercy, leaving him gravely injured with no chance of escape. A mysterious man appears and tells the wolf to take it easy, as he wants some information. Confused, the guy asks how they managed to find him in that alley. The man in the hat simply replies that his wolf's sense of smell is very good. He introduces himself as Charles, the wolf dog, and says he can smell the scent of death. Desperate, the man begs for his life, pleading not to be killed like this. But Charles refuses, saying Kinoshita would be angry and that his wolf was hungry. With a malicious look, he then gives the order to his wolf, saying it's mealtime. The creature lunges forward, its enormous fangs ready to devour its victim. After the meal, a status window appears, showing that he is finally leveled up. He then takes out his phone and tells someone that the job there is done. Charles is surprised to hear that Ugo is injured and says he's on his way. With a smile, he tells his wolf that a new prey has appeared for them. Itsuki arrives at a desolate place known as the Locust Desert, wondering if this is it. He looks over the wheat fields, questioning if there are really that many locusts around here. His companion then explains that the disaster beasts choose environments they prefer to invade. She mentions there's not even a signal, because the danger level of the place is too high. Itsuki is confused since the level is low, but she explains that's not the real problem. It turns out, the beasts in this place are aggressive, and their numbers are absurdly high. She warns him that if he lets his guard down even a little, he'll be completely surrounded, and in the end, he'd be eaten alive until nothing but his bones remained. But Itsuki cracks a smile, thinking it's great that there are so many beasts for him to fight. With a confident look, he says he's not desperate enough to die being eaten by insects. Seeing his attitude, she watches him enter the portal, believing he'll be fine. She thinks to herself that he went in on his own, so the responsibility was all his. But suddenly she panics, realizing she forgot to warn him that they never stop coming. Worried, she decides she has to go in there and tell our protagonist. But just as she tries to go, 2 mysterious figures appear and block her path. A mysterious man appears with a sinister look, saying he's looking for someone here. The scene shifts, and we see Itsuki already inside the desert, finding the place quite abandoned. With a confident smile, he claps his hands and yells for the pests to wake up, because he's come to exterminate them. He realizes the monsters are weak, but perfect for using his skill, Lotus Burst. His analysis shows they are just malignant locusts, with ridiculously low levels like 1 and 2. Suddenly, a gigantic swarm of insects appears in the sky, heading straight for him, but he thinks this is great, creating a lotus flower of pure energy between his hands. His plan is to wait for the insects to gather so he can crush them all at once. As soon as the swarm engulfs him, he shouts, "Now!" releasing all his accumulated power. With that, Lotus Burst is activated, creating a light that devastates everything around. Several notifications pop up, confirming that each defeated locust increases his skill range. He stands amidst the destruction, observing the result of his massive attack. It's explained that the skill has a passive effect that improves its range with every kill. Seeing the 110% bonus, he realizes he defeated 110 monsters at once. With a smile, he calculates he can use the move 10 more times, planning for a 1000% increase. He thinks that if this skill had no cooldown, things would be much smoother. But then he finds it strange that the success message hasn't appeared, and he starts to get suspicious. Just then, a screen appears announcing that a C-rank skill called Mother's Will has been activated. Itsuki turns around, surprised, unable to believe there were still survivors after his attack. Suddenly, more giant locusts emerge from the ground, surrounding him from all sides. One of them attacks him, and he realizes he let his guard down, thinking there was no boss. The problem now was having no idea where the boss was, which complicated things. He then decides he'll defeat all the small ones to force the boss to appear. With that, he uses the burst again, receiving several notifications of increased range. His bonus reaches 220%, making the skill's range enormous. The system window shows that the attack now has a diameter of 16 meters. Even after defeating another 110 monsters, the boss still doesn't show up. The scene shifts underground, revealing a nest with eggs from which more monsters were being born. Itsuki sees the locusts emerging from the ground again as his boss analysis progresses. He checks his mana and gets worried, as he can only use the burst 9 more times. Determined, Itsuki readies his fire, saying he'll finish them all no matter how many appear. He then clenches his fist, shouting that he'll wipe them all off the map at once. With a burst, he destroys several, and the notifications show the increase in his skill range. Then, he fires the attack in sequence, unleashing multiple bursts to clear the area quickly. The system shows his range bonus has reached 990%, but the effort takes its toll, and he realizes he only has enough mana for one more burst. To his despair, another endless swarm appears, leaving him frustrated with the situation. He thinks that the boss isn't showing up and considers retreating to try again later, but he quickly dismisses the idea, thinking that's something a loser would do. With a determined gaze, he prepares to fight, declaring he will defeat all the beasts. With that, he unleashes one last powerful lotus burst with all his energy. Exhausted and on his knees, he's left powerless, believing he has solved the problem. But he's shocked to see the locusts are still there, and their numbers haven't even decreased. Suddenly, a light goes off in his head as he realizes all the monsters are level 1. The analysis finishes, revealing the Locust Queen and her ability to reproduce infinitely. He understands that fighting is pointless without killing the boss, since the monsters just multiply. Just then, the analysis is almost done, and a sphere of energy shatters, completing the process. With this, he gains mana detection, which finds enemies and also restores his energy. He smiles, realizing this is the perfect skill for this tricky stage. But he remembers Ageha is waiting, so he decides it's best to end this quickly. The new skill restores everything, healing his wounds and boosting all his power stats. Fully recovered, he activates the detection to finally locate the true boss of the area. Blue energy waves then spread across the field, searching for any sign of mana. The energy pulse travels a great distance, revealing the Locust Queen hidden underground. His eyes glow with power, and he announces with a smile that he's finally found her. He then prepares a sphere of dark energy, aiming it directly at the Queen. The Queen tries to use her children as a shield, but he sees her tactic as useless. He yells that it won't work, launching a lotus of energy that will reach her. The system confirms the attack's range is 120 meters, enough to hit the target. The attack hits dead on, piercing through the Queen and ending the threat at once. Covered in lightning with his armor activated, he charges forward to finish the Queen. With a confident smile, he faces the enemy up close and declares checkmate. In one swift move, he pierces the Queen's carapace with a fatal and brutal strike. With the leader's death, he watches the locust swarm fall into complete chaos. With a flaming hand, he tells the others he's sending them to join their mother. The system screen shows his skills now have over 1200% range. He's satisfied with the result, already planning to come back to increase this effect even more. As he exits the portal, he sees it took 17 minutes and worries about Ageha waiting. He thinks she'll probably act cold, even though she's relieved he's back. But he finds her way of acting cute, and gets ready to tell her he's back and everything is fine. But suddenly, his eye glows with a fury he's never felt before. He finds Ageha injured, and the mysterious man asks if he's the one Reiji was looking for. The villain explains that he tried to get information from her, but even though she was hurt, she didn't say a word. Filled with rage, Itsuki tells him to let Ageha go, threatening to just give him a beating. But the man laughs, telling the level 0 rookie not to get cocky. In the blink of an eye, Itsuki lunges forward, covered in lightning, ready to wipe him out. The villain is shocked by his speed, feeling that death is coming for him. But a giant demon dog appears out of nowhere, blocking the blow with its own head. Itsuki realizes the dog is a Shinigami, which makes the guy a user of that power. The man analyzes his speed, now understanding why Uga lost the fight. With a smirk, he says he has the dog and the hostage, tightening his grip on the girl's neck. Itsuki gets distracted and shouts her name, creating the perfect opening for the monster's attack. The dog then opens its mouth, ready to rip off the protagonist's arm with one bite. The villain scoffs, saying the best that can happen is that he only loses an arm. Suddenly, the man is in shock, unable to believe what's happening right in front of him. With his other hand, Itsuki shoves a sphere of energy straight into the demonic creature's mouth. The energy explodes from within, destroying the dog's head and killing it instantly. Itsuki analyzes the enemy, knowing that without the Shinigami, the user is completely defenseless. The villain scoffs, wondering if the rookie doesn't know the creature can be resurrected. It's explained that the dog has a rebirth skill that shortens the waiting time. The monster gets up, and the man yells for him to become prey to his Shinigami once again. But Itsuki activates his detection, and waves of energy spread across the battlefield. He reveals that he left his detection on, and that it was the right choice. With the analysis almost complete, he avoids using the Blue Lotus to not arouse suspicion. The villain is terrified because the boy has power, speed, and a detection skill. Desperate, he threatens Ageha's life, shouting for him to stop resisting. Itsuki decides to finish the analysis without the Lotus, and the system confirms the skill acquisition. It's revealed that the new ability, Shinigami Devourer, allows him to control enemy creatures. He realizes he can control the creature, but he didn't receive the healing and status bonuses. Even without the recovery effect, he feels ready, as he was already at full strength. He understands that the new ability can steal Shinigami from other users. With this new power, he prepares to turn the tables, creating a sphere of light. Itsuki charges forward with everything he's got, shouting that he's going to take the dog for himself right now. He then lands a blow on the creature, which begins to be enveloped by his energy. With a powerful strike, he throws the Shinigami far away, in the direction of its former master. The villain is furious with his dog, yelling that the beast was completely useless. Out of options, he threatens again, saying he'll break Ageha's neck if he reacts. But even though she's badly injured, the girl tells him not to worry about her at all. Seeing the situation, Itsuki raises his hands and surrenders, telling the man not to touch her. The man gives a victorious smile, saying she wouldn't have suffered if he had just obeyed. Itsuki then asks why they are chasing him, as he doesn't remember doing anything wrong. The villain then reveals that Reiji Kinoshita is furious because he entered the dungeon without permission. Upon hearing Reiji's name again, he decides he'll settle things personally, but the villain scoffs, warning that the Shinigami will rip his legs off without mercy. He then gives the order to the creature, telling it to rip off both of the boy's legs. However, with a cold gaze, Itsuki tells the dog to prove it is worthy of serving him. The creature turns instantly and attacks its former master, who is terrified by the betrayal. In a swift move, Itsuki scoops Ageha into his arms, saving her from the imminent danger. The villain panics, screaming and asking why his own Shinigami attacked him. Itsuki then praises the dog, which now obeys him as its new master. With a look of pure hatred, he vows to return all her pain 100 times over. The man becomes desperate, begging and saying he can lure Reiji into a trap. Itsuki seems to agree with a terrifying look, saying it's a good proposal. Thinking he's fooled him, the villain smiles and shouts that he's caught him in his trap. He then throws some kind of attack crystal, yelling for our hero to just die already. But Itsuki responds coldly, saying he's more than enough to kill Reiji by himself. With that, he gives an order to his new dog, telling it to make the man suffer. The man begs for forgiveness, asking for one more chance and saying it was a slip-up. But the creature advances slowly, ready to carry out its new master's order. In a panic, he tries to remind the dog that he was its master and had fed it for years, but it's no use, and the creature opens its mouth to devour him without any mercy. Without even looking at the scene, he realizes someone has been watching him the whole time. He then asks how long the person will hide, telling them to show themselves. The scene cuts away, showing that there was indeed someone at the top of that structure. A mysterious hooded guy appears, saying he noticed that Itsuki saw him. Itsuki asks if he's a friend of the guy from before, still holding Ageha in his arms. The blonde guy panics, denying it, and desperately asking for our hero to listen to him. But Itsuki says he doesn't have time, telling his new dog to follow him after it's done eating. The young man watches the dog, thinking that maybe this man could be his salvation. He then introduces himself as Iberia, compliments the fight, and recognizes Itsuki as a famous guy. Then he offers a reward, like mana stones or weapons, in exchange for help. But Itsuki simply ignores him, leaving Iberia confused about what his master taught him. A flashback shows a blacksmith explaining that rewards need to be smart and useful. He said the right thing to do is to give a blade to someone who wants revenge, or medicine to the injured. With this memory, Iberia gets a brilliant idea, realizing what he needs to do. He runs and warns that Ageha is going to die because the nearest hospital is too far away. With a smile, he shows a shiny healing item, saying he luckily had one. He then shouts that he can save her, making Itsuki finally stop walking. Our protagonist turns around in surprise, asking if what he said was true. Iberia warns that he can't fully heal her right now, but he can save her life. He then uses a special bandage on Ageha, explaining that it's not an ordinary item. Itsuki is confused, and Iberia thinks it's normal since he must have just awakened. We're told that modern weapons can't harm beasts, which is why these tools exist. This special equipment is divided into 4 levels, from normal up to the rarest. Normal equipment is like a common weapon, but it can actually hurt the monsters. Rare equipment slightly increases the user's stats, like agility and mana. Meanwhile, epic equipment increases stats and also has very powerful special effects. And finally, unique equipment, the ultimate goal of every artisan in the world. Iberia explains that this is why artisans are so respected by all awakened beings. He brags that his father is not just anyone, as there are only 10 like him. With great pride, he reveals that 3 of the 10 unique tools were made by him. The guy reveals that his father is known as the artisan king of the northern continent, but Iberia gets angry, realizing that Itsuki wasn't paying any attention to him. Itsuki then picks up the crossbow from the ground, recognizing the weapon Charles was using. Iberia is shocked that he didn't even care about his father, while Itsuki thinks about the crossbow's usefulness. He notices the weapon is rare but has no arrows, and Iberia explains that it creates its own ammunition. Suddenly the crossbow vanishes, and the blonde guy says that tools store themselves in the inventory. Itsuki thanks him for the help and says he needs to go, as he's now going to look for this Reiji guy. The blonde guy thinks it's crazy for him to pick a fight with Reiji, and Itsuki asks if he should just give up. But Iberia reveals that, in fact, they both share the same target to defeat. He then invites him to team up for the tournament, which Itsuki was already training for by chance. Itsuki asks what this has to do with Reiji, and Iberia explains that the tournament takes place there. We're told that Reiji is the administrator's son, so it would be a disgrace if he lost. With this, he understands why the guy monopolizes the dungeons, but he still doesn't see the reason for the help. Iberia says his instinct tells him he's strong, but Itsuki questions his haste. The blonde guy gets serious and starts to explain why this tournament is so important to him. In a flashback, we see that he always admired his father, who was a great weaponsmith. His biggest dream was to become an awakened being to fight with his father's equipment. But upon awakening, his father said it was too soon, as only the saviors could use them. He explains that after much pleading, his father set the condition that he must pass the tournament. With a determined look, he shouts that this is why he needs to win the preliminaries. Itsuki finds it strange because with a famous father, he wouldn't need to team up with a level 0. But Iberia says his father forbade him from using his name to get strong allies. He complains that the strong ones have already been bought by Reiji, and the others have already formed teams. But then he heard about a guy who defeated one of the kings and broke a record. Itsuki accepts the partnership, but warns that he'll take Ageha to the hospital first. Excited, Iberia immediately starts suggesting various team names, annoying Itsuki. At that moment, he remembers his friends, wondering if they also entered the tournament. The scene changes, and we see Ryuto suddenly sneezing in the middle of his intense training. Saya asks if he has a cold, but he thinks it was Itsuki talking about him. She gets worried, wondering how much time has passed and how Itsuki must be doing. Ryuto notices and teases her, asking why she didn't go after him sooner. Annoyed, she attacks with a water whip, but he manages to dodge at the last second. He complains it was a cheap shot, but she says it's his fault for letting his guard down. Their teacher arrives, announcing that the preliminaries start the day after tomorrow, with no time for fooling around. The two get excited to fight, and the system shows each of their stats. Meanwhile, elsewhere, someone picks up a briefcase full of experience stones. Reiji Kinoshita is worried, finding it strange that his henchman hasn't shown up at the location yet. In a rage, he crushes one of the stones to gain power, blaming his useless subordinates. He then tells them to forget about the guy, as the tournament is the priority so he won't be punished. His servant informs him that they've already convinced 887 participants to cooperate. Satisfied with the result, Reiji says the servant is the only one he can truly trust. With that, he uses the last tool stone, finally managing to level up again. Now at level 12, he feels ready, saying it's more than enough to crush the commoners. Itsuki Tenma stands amid the lingering energy of the battle, his expression serious. In his thoughts, he apologizes to his sensei for getting Ageha involved. Just then, Izumi Hento approaches and asks what to do with the fallen enemy, but Itsuki gives him a firm look, saying it's best to leave the matter to him. Hento agrees with the decision and asks him to explain the details later. Iberia watches the scene, thinking that Hento is a far more mysterious person than he imagined. The scene shifts to the hospital, where Itsuki explains that he'll be entering the tournament with Iberia. Ageha, in her bed, says she's already recovered, thanks to an artifact Iberia used. Hento then looks at Iberia, asking if he's the son of the artisan, Aiden. The blonde is surprised, as Hento not only knew about the artifact, but also knew his father. Trying to act confident, he gives a thumbs up and shouts that he is Aiden's father. Everyone falls silent, and Hento calmly says that he's got it all wrong. Embarrassed, Iberia corrects himself, whispering that Aiden is his father. Hento then thanks them for saving his daughter and promises to take them to meet Aiden. He dismisses the two to prepare for the tournament, letting them know he and Ageha will be watching. Excited, Iberia promises Hento that they will definitely pass the preliminaries. Once they're alone, Ageha comments that her father likes Tenma, just as he liked her and Kazunari. Hento explains that Itsuki has a self-destructive impulse due to a childhood trauma, but that urge vanishes when he has people by his side he wants to protect. That's why, Hento reveals, he placed Ageha near him, asking her to become his friend. She then understands that she needs to be his weakness, the person Itsuki will want to protect the most. The conversation shifts, and Hento reveals that the attack at the school was a planned act. He looks out the window, saying that humanity's future looks utterly bleak, but he has faith, believing that Tenma will surely light up this path. And with that, the boy will become the great light of hope for everyone. The scene then takes us to the tournament arena, the site of the preliminaries. Itsuki and Iberia arrive to see a massive crowd, which only grew with the news about Hento. Elsewhere, a competitor complains that Izumi Hento's presence has created too many variables. Another group of fighters notices the red ribbons and speculates if Itsuki is there too. Suddenly, the event's host appears, preparing to explain the rules to everyone. The host explains that the arena has an outer and an inner area, with everyone starting in the corners. He announces that the goal is to reach the center, and only the fastest 300 will advance. Ryuto is surprised by the wristband's function, and Saya finds the mass elimination very cruel. As the host permits the use of artifacts, Iberia draws Itsuki's attention to something. He points to Reiji Kinoshita, who is giving orders to his hired team in the arena. Iberia then suggests they get to the inner area quickly to ambush Kinoshita there. But the next second, the blonde boy turns pale, his face a mask of complete despair. It's because Itsuki was already in front of the enemy group, saying he heard their entire plan. Ignoring the commotion, the host gives the signal and announces that the first stage has begun. From above, he observes the competitors, thinking that quality is more important than quantity. Beside him, Heitan Akira comments that in his time, there were many participants above level 15, but we are shown that in his year, only he and Kazunari Tsutsumi had such a high level. Akira smiles, saying it would be boring without rookies like Kazunari to shake things up. He then asks Izumi if the rumor about a new, super strong protege is true. Imposing in his seat, Izumi Hento simply confirms that the story is entirely true. Akira asks if this person is among them, deducing they must have incredible talent. Curious, the host starts checking the participants' data to try and figure out who it is. He first analyzes Riku, but dismisses him due to his low-grade gift. Next, he checks Saya, but also concludes that it's probably not her. Then, he bets it must be the girl, Hana, since her level is quite high. But Izumi Hento corrects him, revealing it's none of them, although Hana is the strongest. Akira then asks if, by any chance, there's a level 0 participant in the tournament. Back in the arena, Reiji's group mocks Itsuki, asking if the boy got lost. Unfazed, Itsuki activates an ability in his hand, facing down the taunters. Reiji then recognizes the technique, shouting that it belongs to Charles and demanding to know who he is. With an intimidating gaze, Itsuki asks if they weren't looking for him. Reiji is furious, unable to believe that a low-level piece of trash defeated his subordinate. He then orders his goons to finish the boy off, and they prepare to attack. But a dark energy erupts from the ground, and Itsuki warns that he has no time to waste. With all enemies down, the protagonist walks past them without a second glance. From a distance, Akira comments that the outcome of the fight is obvious and suggests they should beg for their lives. Iberia is worried, because even if he takes care of one, Itsuki would have to fight 4. With that, he decides he has no choice but to use that thing to help. A new enemy approaches, scoffing that the first opponent he finds is a level 0. But Itsuki, without even looking up, simply tells him to get out of the way. The man is shocked for a second, not believing what he just heard, and then he bursts into laughter, finding the boy's attitude hilarious. Watching from above, Akira says he likes the kid's attitude and will save him if he dies. The red-haired man threatens to crack the boy's head open, but Itsuki just responds with a laugh. Suddenly, a devastating blow lands square on the man's face, sending blood flying. With the enemy down and defeated, Itsuki coldly repeats that he told him to move. Akira is shocked, unable to believe he instantly killed an opponent stronger than him. The remaining henchmen are shocked, but one of them tells the others not to panic. He then prepares a fireball, shouting that he'll burn the rookie to ashes. Iberia is startled by the explosion. It was so fast he didn't even have time to react. The enemy group scoffs, saying it's normal to die in the preliminaries if you're weak. But as the smoke begins to settle, one of them points, warning that something is very wrong. Turns out, a giant wall of black ice had appeared from nowhere, protecting them both. Iberia, now holding 2 daggers, is impressed by the defense that was created. But Itsuki gives him a cold stare, simply telling him to get back immediately. A system screen appears, explaining that the wall has increased his defense stats. With his defense boosted, he thinks he needs to test the skill's passive effect again. The enemy is stunned, wondering how he used an ice ability without being a water element user. Itsuki then points at him, telling him to attack again, because this time he won't block. The guy gets enraged, asking if he's being messed with, and Itsuki confirms that he is. Furious, the enemy prepares his strongest attack, a superheated, powerful flamethrower. The blast of fire surges forward, but Itsuki notices that even though it's stronger, it's still just a B-rank skill. The torrent of fire advances with full force, engulfing the arena with its devastating power. The enemy brags, saying the strength of this blow is comparable to that of a level 89. He realizes the attack took all his mana, thinking it a waste against a level 0. But suddenly, the man looks to the side with a look of complete terror, unable to understand what's happening. Itsuki then confirms that the ice's passive effect doesn't work twice on the same target. With the test finished, he faces the other enemies and warns them it's time to end this. The brute is shocked, but the other one says he's already figured out the kid's weakness. With that, the big guy prepares to use his skill, a powerful fire blast. He launches several fireballs, but Itsuki activates his ice wall again to defend himself. The attacks explode in succession, creating a curtain of fire and smoke in front of him. The enemy smirks, planning to drain the kid's mana, since it must be limited. But as he gets ready, his hands are suddenly grabbed with absurd strength. The big guy is in shock, breaking into a cold sweat at what has appeared before him. It's Itsuki, now in a suit of ice armor, having crossed the distance between them in an instant. The brute then tries to use his strength, yelling that if the kid's strong suit is speed, theirs is power. Inside the armor, Itsuki asks disdainfully if the enemy is even trying. Seeing the brute's effort, he says he'll go easy on him and throws him to the ground. The system screen then analyzes the clash, showing the calculation of the defense increase. The remaining enemies try to flee, but Itsuki notices they are lightning users and comes up with a plan. He glares at them with a deadly look, asking if they really think they can escape. Desperate, the two use their electric abilities, trying to take the protagonist down with them, but the system screen reveals that he has absorbed the attacks, increasing his agility. Akira, watching everything, is impressed by how easily he defeats stronger opponents. Enveloped in an electric aura, Itsuki stands amidst the already defeated enemies. He then understands that the absorption effect, just like the ice one, doesn't activate twice. Iberia approaches the bodies, confirming with his hands on his hips that everyone has been knocked out. With a smile, he says he thought it would be tough, but he didn't expect Itsuki to be so strong. The masked enemy, on the ground, shouts, asking who he is, because he can't be a level 0. Iberia then stands next to him, and Itsuki wonders why he said we. With a smug smile, Iberia announces that they are Double I, the strongest duo. Itsuki ignores the idea, already dragging Iberia along so they can go after Kinoshita at once. Lying on the ground, the defeated enemy thinks the duo's name is totally lame. Far away, Reiji Kinoshita senses the commotion and deduces that the level 0 must be getting beaten up by now. But he recognizes Charles's weapon, deciding he'll have to investigate it later. Suddenly, a competitor on fire flies past him at high speed. Elsewhere, a participant celebrates making it through, bragging about being a speed specialist. But out of nowhere, a purple lightning bolt strikes the speedster, who screams in pain. He falls to the ground, not understanding who managed to hit him while he was running at full speed. Then, a foot wrapped in purple energy stomps hard on the man's back. It was Reiji, who warns that this is what happens when someone runs ahead of him. He scolds his team, telling them not to waste their time on this kind of trash. In the private boxes, a woman comments to Hento about the administrator's son's arrogance. Although it's not against the rules, Reiji takes advantage of others to fill up his stamina. With his plan working, he's sure he'll pass the second phase with ease. Finally, he reaches the entrance to the inner area, thinking it was surprisingly easy. Suddenly, a voice echoes through the arena, calling for Kinoshita amidst the lightning. Reiji turns around instantly, a shocked look on his face, trying to figure out who called him. His henchmen get on the defensive, and one of them points, warning that it's that level 0 rookie. In the rain, the silhouettes of Itsuki and Iberia approach, putting the group on high alert. When they get closer, the enemies confirm that it really is the kid from before. Reiji can't believe it, finding it impossible that he defeated all his men. With an angry smile, he accuses the rookie of being a piece of trash who won't stop following him, but Itsuki warns him that he's staying right there until they settle things. Reiji says he's busy, but he has prepared some playmates for them. With a furious look, he orders his new henchmen to take care of the kid. The group then surrounds the duo, mocking a level 0 for having so much courage. Iberia becomes desperate as he counts over 100 enemies and asks what they're going to do. Itsuki then places a hand on his head, telling the boy to hold on tight. At that moment, blue lightning bolts erupt from the ground, surrounding all the henchmen in front. Reiji turns back, sensing the energy from the attack that was just launched. In the blink of an eye, Itsuki leaps and creates a barrier of lightning that traps Reiji. The leader has no idea what happened, while Iberia watches everything with a panicked expression. Then, Itsuki says that maybe he didn't explain himself properly, deciding to rephrase his statement. With a serious look, he warns that no one is leaving until they settle things. Harino says that they would have been eliminated if they had not stayed together. Even so, he thought that they were among the fastest of all. Elsewhere, a woman asks Akira if he is already hungry. Then they look at the first place holder, Kana, who is already level 16. Harino points to the sky, warning that someone is flying in their direction. The girl looks up, watching the person who is rapidly approaching. Suddenly, Iberia crashes hard onto the ground, right in front of the duo. He turns back, injured, and desperately shouts Itsuki's name. Harino then asks if he really heard the fallen boy call out for Itsuki. His partner confirms, saying that was exactly what she heard as well. The scene shifts to a memory of Itsuki standing with his back turned in the rain. He faces someone and says he will not let him leave until they settle the score. Back in the present, Fujiwara wonders why Itsuki is fixated on Reiji. Beside him, a woman with glasses watches the whole situation with concern. Fujiwara then asks Akira Heighten to help the boy if he gets into trouble. Akira Heighten reflects on Itsuki's speed, wondering if he could achieve that. In the flashback, Reiji faces his opponent and tells him to get ready. He continues, stating that what is about to begin is not a simple battle. Then the man shouts that it will be the total humiliation of his adversary. He explains that it will be, in other words, a lynching against one person. Back in the present, Itsuki says that his priority now is to avenge Ageha. Reiji points at the boy and shouts, ordering everyone to kill him. The whole group advances at once, running toward Itsuki. One of them steps forward, saying he will take his head with his punch, but Itsuki simply blocks the attack with only one of his hands. Next, he grabs his opponent's arm and twists it forcefully. Itsuki throws the man face first straight into the ground, knocking him out. The others step back, and one of them says there is no way they can lose. Itsuki says that is fine with him, as a system notification appears. Then he says he will put an end to this farce quickly and activates his skill. The boy spins his arm, releasing a large amount of energy around him. Then he causes a massive explosion that sends all his opponents flying away. Harino is shocked and asks if that really was Itsuki's ability. Akira questions what that explosion was, and the girl says that is just a snack. The first place holder, Kana, also turns to observe what just happened. Fujiwara is astonished, questioning how he used a skill that is not from his class. The woman says she did not know that Itsuki had an area of effect ability. Itsuki states that 30% is enough, since he does not want to kill them. Reiji looks over the battlefield, seeing all of his men fallen. Itsuki stares directly at him and warns that now only he is left to fight. Reiji shouts, asking why he is so obsessed with him. Reiji, Itsuki says he will return all the pain his friend felt because of him. Reiji gets irritated and says he can reach levels that others would never dream of. He shouts that his foundations are different and swears that he will kill Itsuki. Reiji fires off a massive attack, and Itsuki's system begins analyzing it. At the last second, Itsuki dodges and completely evades Reiji's strike. Reiji falls to the ground, saying it is impossible to defeat someone with that speed. Then he panics and starts shouting the name of someone called 40. A bald man rushes forward at high speed, deciding that he will break the rules. Reiji smiles and warns that 40 is level 35, telling Itsuki to get ready. Far from there, Akira gives an order to his subordinate, who says he understands. Itsuki realizes that someone is approaching with anti-magic and at high speed. The analysis of Reiji's ability was still ongoing in the boy's system. At that moment, 40 arrives to attack, but is stopped by a wall of stone. The rock wall rises from the ground, completely blocking the man's attack. Itsuki looks to the side, watching who has just interfered in their fight. It was Akira Heighten, who holds 40 and tells Itsuki to please continue. Itsuki then turns to Reiji and warns that his help will not arrive. Reiji begs him to stop, mentioning his family's important positions. The scene ends with Reiji completely defeated on the ground, and Itsuki standing. Itsuki says to himself that with this, Ageha has finally been properly avenged. The woman with glasses watches the unfolding situation carefully from a distance. Fujiwara comments that he won, and wonders why he is looking at them. The system shows the analysis at 99%, and he pauses it. A voice calls out to him, making him turn toward the sound. He recognizes the voice of the one who called him, and looks back in surprise. Itsuki sees the pink-haired girl and calls her by her name, Saya. Saya approaches and tells them to go somewhere covered quickly. She continues, warning that he might catch a cold if he stays there. He replies that it has been a while, and the system announces his new rank. Iberia and Horino run to hug him, happy that he is safe and sound. Horino looks at Iberia and asks who he thinks he is to be crying on Itsuki. The blonde boy responds by introducing himself as Itsuki Tenma's official partner. Horino accuses him of being a traitor, while Saya watches the scene amused. He asks the name of the team, and Iberia replies that they are not children. Horino says of course they have a name and tells Iberia to say it. Iberia then proudly announces that their team's name is Double E. Horino starts laughing, saying the name is pathetic, and Iberia gets irritated. The scene shifts and Fujiwara announces that the second phase will begin soon. He explains that everyone will fight alone against a beast for a full hour. Iberia is shocked, while Itsuki simply confirms that the second phase has finally begun. Elsewhere, Akira Heighten says he had been looking forward to this moment. The main competitors are shown, ready to prove what they are capable of. The scene shows us the inside of the arena, where the qualifiers were already gathered. A competitor then asks if the second phase of the tournament will take place in there. Ryuto meets up with Itsuki and asks if his level is still really stuck at 0. He wants to know how Itsuki gets strong without leveling up, but the hero says it's a secret. But Saya appears, telling him he doesn't need to justify his abilities. From above, the hosts observe the group, and the MC asks if everyone is ready. Suddenly, Iberia looks up with a panicked expression, completely shocked. The crowd recognizes the legends there, like Fujiwara, Akira, and even Izumi Hento. The host then steps forward and announces he'll explain the rules for the second stage. He explains that beasts will appear, and the score will depend on the chosen difficulty, and after each victory, they'll only have 1 minute before moving to the next level. A fighter named Gaku shows off, saying he's going straight for the nightmare level. In the middle of the explanation, Itsuki raises his hand and says he has a question. Some competitors make fun of him, thinking he's scared of a one-on-one fight, but Fujiwara allows it, telling him to ask whatever he wants without any problem. Itsuki faces the group and asks if Nightmare Mode is the highest difficulty of all. Akira smirks, while the host is surprised by the bold question. The other competitors start mocking him, saying a level 0 doesn't stand a chance. But Fujiwara explains that, in theory, there is no difficulty limit for the beasts. Ryuto is shocked and says it's pointless to think about that, as it would be lucky just to beat the hard mode. The host then reveals that the points accumulated here will count towards the main tournament. The crowd is surprised by the news, and Iberia decides he'll have to use his secret technique. Itsuki remembers Kazunari's record, seeing this as the perfect chance to surpass him. With the rules explained, Fujiwara orders everyone to enter the testing arena immediately. The second stage begins, and Itsuki sees that the place isn't much different from normal stages. But suddenly, several pairs of bright red eyes appear in the darkness before him. A pack of calamity hounds emerges, and he finally seems excited to fight beasts. He activates his ice wall, thinking he needs to finish them off as quickly as possible. In the control room, Akira asks if Fujiwara is monitoring the kid again. With a wicked smile, Akira says this guy is much more interesting than the others. Akira excitedly yells that the beasts have arrived, but Fujiwara doesn't understand the reason for his surprise. In the arena, Itsuki defeats all the hounds in a single second, earning 100 points instantly. Fujiwara is shocked by the time, and Akira brags, saying he told him the guy was interesting. He thinks it's possible since they were only level 1, but the next enemy is level 8. Then, a giant level 8 fire salamander appears in front of the protagonist. Akira thinks it's going to be tough for him, but Hento says this salamander is no threat. Hento asks about the others, and Ageha realizes her father is trying to divert the focus from Itsuki. Fujiwara looks at his tablet, commenting that most are still stuck on the beginner level. The scene shows Saya using her water abilities against one of the beasts in the arena. Elsewhere, a competitor appears, crushing his enemy with a giant sledgehammer, and we are shown that Kana Hanyu is the only one managing to keep up with Itsuki's pace. Back in the viewing box, the woman with glasses gets worried, saying this is bad for Itsuki. It turns out he was completely engulfed by the salamander's flames, disappearing into the fire. Fujiwara wants to call the medics, but Akira stops him, telling him to wait a little longer. From the flames, Itsuki emerges unharmed, activating his powerful black ice wall to protect himself. With his ice armor, Itsuki charges forward and cuts the salamander with a precise strike. The blow is so powerful it splits the fire beast in two instantly. He stands over the monster's body, having taken only 5 seconds to win. Fujiwara is shocked by the armor, and Akira wonders why he took the hit. But we see it was all a plan to use the wall to increase his defense. With that, his defense reaches the incredible number of 434. He then ignores the rest time, ready to test his new defense on the next beast. Back in the room, they comment that this difficulty tests both speed and combat. The next creature is a level 10 electric rhinoceros, a very dangerous opponent. Fujiwara explains that its horn can pierce the body of anyone without defense, and those without lightning resistance end up paralyzed and unable to move. He says the way to win is to use speed to attack when the beast gets tired, but suddenly, his jaw drops, unable to believe what the kid is planning. Itsuki calmly approaches the rhinoceros, touching its electric horn. He faces the beast and says that its horn is perfect for testing his defense. The rhinoceros becomes enraged by the touch, snorting and preparing its electric charge. With that, the beast charges full force, hitting the protagonist head-on with its horn. Itsuki is launched into the air by the force of the impact, enveloped in electricity. In the viewing box, the woman with glasses screams his name, desperate at the sight. But Akira thinks that despite being unpredictable, the kid always delivers incredible results. Suddenly, an explosion of ice and blue energy erupts in the middle of the arena. Itsuki lands on the ground, realizing that level 10 beast can no longer harm him. With his eyes glowing red, he announces that now it's time to settle this. He then activates his Thunder Wave, increasing his agility by 50%. The rhinoceros stands still, its horn broken and smoking after the attack. The beast then turns, only to be enveloped by a flurry of sharp blue energy. In the blink of an eye, Itsuki is already sitting on the defeated rhinoceros's back. In the room, Akira comments that it took him less than 15 seconds to beat both beasts. Fujiwara becomes thoughtful, knowing the next creature is a much greater challenge. He then describes the next monster, which has sharp claws that shred everything. Fujiwara continues, describing a giant mouth that spits chains to swallow everything, and also a huge body, covered in armor that looks like an exoskeleton. He explains that this is the strongest beast of the preliminaries, the final objective. Then, the level 15 Purgatory Giant appears, the Nightmare Mode Beast. But without wasting any time, Itsuki activates his piercing sphere and fires a purple beam. The attack goes right through the monster, and the system announces that the projectile's speed has increased. In the control room, everyone's jaw drops, unable to believe what they just saw. The screen shows the total increase was 900%, making its power absurd. One of the arena's security cameras focuses on the fight, recording every detail of the action. He prepares for the next one, and the system shows that the fight took only 3 seconds. Meanwhile, one of the arena beasts fires a blast of energy from its mouth. The scene shifts to Saya, who uses her water bullet, thinking about her class advancement. Gaku Oe also rushes, skipping his rest to be the first to reach the normal level. Kana Hanyu, on the other hand, prefers to be cautious, recovering her mana before continuing the fight. Suddenly, an alarm sounds, announcing that someone has completed Nightmare Mode in 21 seconds. Saya's jaw drops, realizing instantly it could only have been Itsuki. Gaku is also furious, wondering if it was Hanyu who managed to be faster. Meanwhile, Kana just observes the situation, a serious expression on her face. Back to Itsuki, he points forward and asks if they can move on to the next one. In the control room, the staff is shocked that he killed a level 15 giant instantly. Akira then smiles and orders them to increase the difficulty, wanting to see how far the kid will go. In the arena, Itsuki is disappointed to see they only increased the number of enemies. The two Purgatory Giants then prepare to attack the protagonist with everything they've got, but Itsuki decides to take care of one of them, while the other was still preparing. With that, he activates his sphere and defeats one of the giants, upgrading his skill again. Fujiwara is shocked, unable to understand how he can use the sphere as many times as he wants. Akira then reveals that, despite its power, that ability has a fatal flaw. In the arena, the second giant charges towards Itsuki, ready to attack with full force. Itsuki immediately realizes that this monster's speed is greater than any other. In the VIP box, Hento comments that people are often deceived by the giant's size. Back in the fight, Itsuki prepares to attack with his dark energy sphere. He fires the projectile, which speeds towards the creature. But Hento explains that the giants are actually speed types, not strength types. The analysis screen shows the monster can't use magic, but its other stats are higher. And to Itsuki's surprise, the giant manages to dodge his attack at the last second. Hento then explains that the kid only won before because of the surprise attack. Akira adds that if he doesn't increase the sphere's speed, He won't pass. At that moment, the giant charges and strikes with enough force to create a crater in the ground. The blow sends out a shockwave that destroys part of the arena. Itsuki manages to escape the attack, but he realizes the monster can dodge from a distance. Akira deduces he must have another card up his sleeve to keep insisting on that attack. With a confident smile, Itsuki acknowledges the monster's speed and decides to close the distance. He activates his Thunder Wave, dashing across the arena at an absurd speed. The protagonist then leaps over the giant, preparing to attack from behind, but the monster retaliates with a powerful blow, hitting him squarely in midair. The force of the blow is so great it slams Itsuki against the arena wall. In the VIP box, the woman with glasses is shocked, covering her mouth with her hand. Fujiwara grabs his phone, yelling for them to call the rescue team as fast as possible. But Hento stops him again, telling him to wait and see what happens. Akira comments that the blow's power is immense, but it's useless if it doesn't hit. The dust settles, revealing the giant's hand stuck in the wall, covered in a strange liquid. When it turns around, it sees Itsuki calling out to it, standing on the other side of the arena. The monster then looks at the wall and realizes what it hit wasn't the boy. It's completely confused, not understanding how it was tricked like that. But from a distance, Itsuki takes advantage of the distraction and fires his sphere right at the nape of the monster's neck. Shrouded in energy, Itsuki prepares for another attack, his gaze determined. The projectile pierces straight through the giant, pinning it to the arena floor for good. Standing over the monster, he sees his sphere has become even faster with the victory. With that, he finishes the fight in 12 seconds, earning another 10,000 points in total. In the VIP box, Ageha's friend comments that it's very rare to see her so worked up, but Ageha tries to play it cool, saying she was just praying for everyone's safety. All embarrassed, she stumbles over her words, saying she didn't think Tenma was cool or anything. Her father then comments that she's become much more talkative since the last time they saw each other. Then, Fujiwara asks Akira how he knew Itsuki was dodging the attacks. Akira explains that his normal speed isn't much different from the giant's, but when electricity flows through his body, his speed increases drastically. With that power, it was impossible for the giant's attack to hit him. Fujiwara then says that with his current score, first place is already guaranteed, but Itsuki thinks that to surpass Kazunari, the strongest of them all, he can't stop. With a purple aura, he yells that he can't rest, not even for a second. The system then announces Phase 3, with 3 giants appearing before him. With a smile, Itsuki fires his purple sphere, ready to take down the first one. Akira comments that he decided to continue, as expected of the man he chose. But Fujiwara points out that Akira didn't go straight to Phase 4 like the kid did. He says that not even Akira could handle it, and wonders what will happen to Tenma. In the arena, the second giant charges with all its might, trying to hit the protagonist with a strike. But Itsuki dodges with ease, using his agility to confuse the monster. With Thunder Wave, he closes the distance and prepares to attack from behind. He then fires his sphere and defeats the second giant, increasing his power even more. Fallen on the ground, he thinks there's only the third one left, but his body feels exhausted. The last giant then lunges and manages to bite down on Itsuki, trying to devour him, but the monster senses something strange, as if the boy's body feels different. Suddenly, a light begins to shine from inside the giant creature's mouth. With his eyes ablaze, Itsuki activates his Lotus Explosion, ready to destroy everything. An orange light explodes from within the monster, illuminating the entire arena with its force. The explosion defeats the giant, and the system announces that the range of his skills has increased. The boy falls amidst the flames, earning another 15,000 points for his victory. Fujiwara is shocked, unable to understand what just happened right in front of him. He then remembers this was the same skill that defeated several opponents in the first phase. Itsuki gets up, realizing his mana has dropped to 0 after that attack, but he knows that as long as the beasts keep appearing, his mana will continue to regenerate. Then, Phase 4 begins, and his magic recovers, thanks to the 4 new enemies. In the viewing box, Akira comments that only Kazunari has ever passed Phase 4. Itsuki prepares to fight, knowing that each hit makes his sphere faster, and with greater speed, the chance of hitting the target also increases significantly. He thinks that if he keeps this up, he'll be able to hit them without getting close, but he knows his mana is limited, and he can't afford to waste a single attack. The giant then spits out its chains, charging at the boy with everything it has. But Itsuki manages to dodge the attack, preparing to counter the monster's strike. Itsuki realizes the giant used the chains to pull its body back. With this move, the monster dodges the projectile, which grazes past its head. It then lands a powerful blow, slamming the protagonist into the ground with full force. The impact is so strong that Itsuki thinks it's all over for him. With the giant's claws on top of him, he realizes he can't move. The creature then squeezes with all its might, ready to crush him at once. The attack seems to have been fatal, and an image of a bloody skeleton appears. The giant throws his body away, creating a crater in the arena with the force. Itsuki falls to the ground, bruised and covered in blood, unable to move. In the viewing box, Fujiwara screams in desperation, telling Akira to go help him immediately. Akira is frozen, wondering if this is where the boy's journey ends. He remembers when he was defeated, seeing the same scene repeat itself before his eyes. Determined, he turns and says he's going to save the boy, but someone stops him. It was Hento, who looks at him and calmly says that Tenma hasn't given up the fight yet. Everyone panics, but Akira explains that his situation is completely hopeless. But Hento says he can see that he still has an ace up his sleeve. Fujiwara asks how he knows that, and Hento replies that it's because of his eyes. His eyes are not those of someone who has accepted their end, but of someone who will fight. Itsuki then remembers he did everything to nullify himself, and activates his over-mimesis ability. In the fight with Kinoshita, he had activated the analysis of one of his abilities, but he decided to cancel the analysis at the last second when it reached 99%. He saved the 100% complete analysis for a dangerous situation like this. In the box, the woman points excitedly to a blue lotus flower that has appeared in the arena. Akira is confused because Ageha seems happy, and he wonders if she knows something. The system screen explains that his skill can now absorb lightning attacks to become stronger. Itsuki's hand, which was previously injured, begins to regenerate completely. With his hand clenched, he recovers, blue energy enveloping his entire body. With the evolved skill, he gains 20 points in all stats and heals his wounds. He stands up and announces that the warm-up is over, and now he'll fight with everything he's got. His stats then rise, with all his attributes increasing by 20 points. Fujiwara is stunned as he healed faster than a professional healer. Itsuki then fires his spheres, defeating the remaining giants all at once. With Phase 4 complete, he declares he won't lose, no matter how many more appear. He continues to fire his spheres, now at an absolutely absurd speed. The projectile pierces the monster's chest with ease, before it can even react. The sphere then ricochets, hitting the other giant right in the back. The last monster is hit head-on, and Itsuki successfully completes another phase. In the viewing box, everyone is speechless, with their jaws dropped at what they've just witnessed. In the arena, Itsuki sits on the bodies, wondering who the real monster is here. Exhausted, he calls for the next phase, but realizes no more giants are appearing. Fujiwara grabs the microphone, saying he can't believe what's happening is real. He then presses a red button, preparing to make an important announcement. With a trembling voice, he informs Tenma that the test is over for him. It turns out the boy has defeated all the giants they had prepared for the test. In the arena, the host's voice echoes, announcing he has defeated all the prepared giants. Itsuki is confused as he thought the test's difficulty had no limit. He wonders how many points he scored, since the limit closed the gap with Kazunari. Additionally, the system informs him that he achieved his goal of increasing the sphere's speed. Now his ability is so fast that a screen compares it to a high-speed car. A blue aura then envelops his body, and he feels a strange energy rising, but he glances aside with a tired look, as if remembering something. He sighs, realizing he had completely forgotten a small detail. Since he can't level up, all the experience from the arena turns into a large karma stone. In the private box, Hento explains that since he doesn't absorb XP, it materializes. Akira understands that if he fights in a duo, his partner can take all the experience. Itsuki picks up the stone, and Fujiwara thinks he's lucky to be human. With the test over, he says they've done what they needed to, and it's time to go. He then approaches the arena exit, and the large door begins to open. Seeing him leave the proving grounds, Fujiwara tells the others that he made it. The system then announces the results, with Itsuki in first place with a high score. Fujiwara approaches him, saying he has great potential and offering him a new mentor. But Itsuki refuses, explaining he already has a teacher, which irritates the host. Akira then steps in, saying that if he keeps insisting, it'll end badly for him. He mentions he took care of Kinoshita's goons, as they were just a bunch of thugs, and with a smile, he reveals that the boy is the legendary Izumi's student. Fujiwara is shocked by the revelation, and Itsuki simply thanks him for the help. Akira confirms the information, making it clear he's a pupil of the great Hento. Just then, Hento approaches, and Itsuki refers to him as his teacher. The woman with glasses then congratulates the boy, saying she saw his entire performance. Itsuki says he's fine, just a little tired, but nothing a little rest won't fix. Fujiwara and Akira comment that it makes sense for him to be so strong, being Izumi's student. The host explains that the test now goes up to Phase 6, thanks to Kazunari. Akira then tells him to relax, since the second stage has barely begun for the others. We see Ryuto, who can barely lift his arms, finishing on hard mode. We see Saya, who's trying to suffocate the beast with a giant water bubble. With that, she also finishes her run in the challenge, but it takes her 19 minutes. Itsuki comments that they both stopped at hard mode, and Fujiwara explains that they're good. The host says that competitors can only leave the arena if they're severely injured. Suddenly, Akira announces that another participant has reached nightmare mode. The screen shows us Gaku Oe, who could probably defeat at least one giant, and also a Shinigami user, who has a lot of grit to have made it this far. She then yells, and her creature transforms into its full beast form. Now a giant werewolf, the Shinigami charges at the enemy with everything it's got. The giant tries to fight back, but the creature easily stops its blow. Hento explains that Shinigamis can shapeshift, and that one must be careful with them. Itsuki then thinks about the dog he got from Charles, deciding he's going to level it up. He turns to leave, saying that since his friends have already given up, there's no reason to stay. But he stops suddenly, his eyes wide, seeing something shocking in front of him. It was Iberia, encased in a strange armor, probably a gift from his father. Iberia brags, saying it's the strongest epic armor his father has ever made. We then see the armor's stats screen, which grants an extra 100 attack and agility. He explains that the armor has a will of its own, and it was difficult to tame it, but he has to win in 15 minutes, or he'll suffer severe penalties. With the armor, his attack and agility stats increase by 120. He charges forward, saying he needs to push himself so he doesn't hold his partner back. He then strikes the giant, yelling that they are the double-eye duo after all. Itsuki watches from the corner of his eye, realizing his friend has gone into full berserker mode. Suddenly, a siren blares, announcing that the second phase of the tournament is finally over. Fujiwara announces that only the top 10 will advance to the main event, with prizes for the top 2. Lying on the ground, Gaku Oe boasts that the special reward is already his. The host then prepares himself, saying he will now announce the top 10 ranked participants, and the screen shows the results, with Itsuki in first place, with over 100,000 points. The other competitors are shocked, as the previous record was 60,000. Gaku gets up, furious about placing third, and asks who Itsuki Tenma is. Kana Hanyu says she would love to cross swords with Itsuki Tenma one day. Saya, on the other hand, is discouraged by the power gap between them. In the private box, Ageha celebrates, exclaiming that the results are out and Itsuki is in the lead. She feels that her father is very happy, as humanity's new sun is shining brightly. Lying on the ground, Iberia smiles, saying he already knew Itsuki would take first place. He stands up, proud to have delivered a performance worthy of their duo. Itsuki then praises his friend, telling him he was amazing and left him completely shocked. Iberia gets all goofy from the praise, making the face of a complete, happy idiot. With that, the preliminaries of the 21st National Tournament are finally concluded. Itsuki carries Iberia on his back, since his friend used up all his energy in the fight. The scene shifts to the southern continent, where a white-bearded old man meditates peacefully. One of the guards complains, but another scolds him, explaining that he is the supreme commander. His name is Balgar, and he's known as a prophet capable of foreseeing the future. The skeptical guard then asks why the barriers always go up before the warning, but it's explained that he can only foresee a small part, yet he is still very powerful. Suddenly, Balgar's eyes fly open, panicking at the vision he just had. He leaps to his feet, shouting that his predictions are always 100% accurate. At that, he nearly faints, but urgently warns that the northern continent is in great danger. He explains that a massive attack by beasts is coming, including some above level 100. Back at Hento's house, a gentle breeze blows through the garden trees. Itsuki looks at his status screen, seeing he's finally passed 1,500 points. His agility and defense stats have grown a lot, thanks to his passive skills. We're shown that with each level, the awakened gain 50 status points to use. He then calculates that his total points are equivalent to a level 30 awakened. His passive skills can increase his agility and defense infinitely, which is great, but he's worried about his attack since he has no way to increase that stat. Suddenly a voice shouts, announcing that the food is finally ready. It was Ryuto, who arrives all excited, saying he made Itsuki's favorite dishes. Itsuki walks towards them, thinking that over-mimesis might give him an attack skill. The scene changes to the table, where everyone gathers for a feast prepared by Ryuto. Itsuki then asks about Iberia, who still hasn't shown up to join them. Ageha explains that she healed his injuries, but he's sleeping from exhaustion. Ryuto is impressed that a level 7 like him managed to clear nightmare mode, but Saya suddenly chokes and points behind him, with a look of pure panic on her face. Ryuto doesn't understand a thing, as a sinister shadow appears right behind him in the room. The shadowy figure then whispers that it wants food, looking like a completely starved zombie. It was just Iberia, who knocks Ryuto out of his chair and charges towards the table. The cook scolds him for the scare, while the blonde devours everything in sight. With his head down, Iberia shows his empty bowl, asking for even more food. Ryuto gets embarrassed asking why his friend is mad at him of all people. But Iberia lifts his face and, with a smile, says the food is delicious. Ryuto brags, saying his cooking definitely brought his friend back to normal. Iberia says he has more talent as a chef, and Ryuto isn't sure if it's a compliment. Hento then interrupts the mess, saying he has an important question to ask. He looks at everyone at the table, wanting to know what the scariest thing is for them. Ryuto thinks for a moment and explains that his dream is to travel the world eating well. Therefore, his biggest fear is getting old and not being able to enjoy life properly anymore. He gets goosebumps, saying that just thinking about it gives him the chills. Hento then turns to Saya, who begins to tell them she was born into a family of doctors. With tears in his eyes, Itsuki remembers the warmth he felt from that negative world. After that, he met his master, Ageha, and even the clumsy Iberia. It's as if he had found new companions, as if his family had grown. He smiles, saying it's been a long time since he felt this safe, and that he wanted it to last. Out loud, he answers that more than anything, he was afraid of living alone. Ageha notices his aura is calm and peaceful, completely different from before. But Iberia throws himself at him, shouting that he'll never abandon him, making Itsuki embarrassed. Hento then explains that he asked this because regret is something a savior cannot have. He warns that a death without regrets is the goal of every savior in the world. With the lesson taught, he tells everyone to finish eating and go rest soon. The group says goodbye, promising to meet again at the national tournament. Itsuki asks when Iberia got so close to Ryuto, and he gets embarrassed. As they walk, Itsuki remembers he had something to ask Saya, but decides to save it for later. He looks to the side and wonders about Ageha, who seems to be gone. Suddenly, he sees her running desperately and wonders why she's in such a hurry. Hento asks what happened, and she explains that it's a secret report from the southern continent. She says the information is top secret and can only be told to high-level saviors, but Hento tells her to say it, saying he trusts them both and that it's no problem. She then reveals Balgar's prophecy about a massive beast attack in 3 days. Itsuki asks if the prophecy is reliable, and Hento confirms that he is the best. Ageha tries to convince her father to flee, but he says he's the target. With this, Hento understands that if he stays, he'll serve as great bait. Itsuki and Ageha offer to fight, but Hento immediately refuses their help. He says he's already made up his mind, and that he has something important for Tenma to do. With that, he asks them both to protect Aiden, Iberia's father and a great craftsman. Itsuki understands that his master is trying to keep him away from the battlefield. Ageha then approaches, saying she also has 3 requests for her father. She orders to evacuate the citizens, notify the awakened, and protect the most populated areas. At night, Ageha says she's already made the arrangements, and Hento apologizes for the trouble. She gives him a suspicious look, as if she doesn't believe her father's words. Hento asks if she's worried, but Ageha says she'll have to defeat everyone. She then remarks that, as expected, her father always sees through everything. He explains that he sent Tenma away because if he fought, his abilities would be exposed. Hento also reveals that from his battles, he realized the boy lacks offensive power, and that's why he sent him to Aiden, who has an artifact that increases power. If he succeeds, a perfect awakened being with all attributes will finally be born. On the first day of the prophecy, stone monuments fall all over the northern continent. Itsuki and Iberia are running, and the blonde one says they still have 100 kilometers to go. The protagonist thinks they need to hurry, as the attack could start soon. Suddenly, Iberia stops and points to the sky, yelling for his friend to look. Itsuki turns and sees what his friend was pointing at, completely shocked by the sight. A flaming stone monument was falling right into the middle of their city area. The giant pillar hits the ground with full force, causing an explosion that lights up the night. Itsuki thinks the evacuation must still be in progress, and that a beast now would be a disaster. In the city, a group of awakened ones warns that a beast is coming and tells everyone to run. Iberia notices that a barrier has formed and thinks about the dilemma between helping and their mission. Itsuki thinks Iberia is tired and worried, and that suggesting they save the civilians would just annoy him. But the blonde surprises him, saying the beast inside is strong, and they need to help. With that, they change their plans, deciding to take care of the beast in the city first. The ground then starts to shake, and a stone creature emerges from the earth. It was a flame golem, a level 21 beast, much stronger than the awakened ones. One of the fighters says that even as a group, it'll be tough to beat such a strong monster. The group's leader creates a stone shield, shouting for no one to break formation. He tells the others to look for an opening while he holds off the golem's attack. But the creature hurls a fireball that hits the leader head-on, sending him flying. The man crashes against a wall, saying it's impossible he survived that hit. The others panic, because if even their strongest couldn't take it, they don't stand a chance. One of them yells to run, but the golem appears and strikes him before he can escape. He then yells to the others, telling them to watch out for the attack. But when he turns around, he sees the golem right in front of him, its red eyes glowing. Desperate, he fires his water cannon, begging for the monster not to kill him. He thinks it's over, but then remembers that as a water element user, he has an advantage. The others wonder if he succeeded, but decide to finish the golem off anyway. But the man stands up, saying he defeated the beast alone and should be the one to finish it. But the golem regenerates and grabs him, leaving all the awakened ones shocked at the scene. The creature then unleashes a blast of fire, and everyone thinks it's over for them. Suddenly, a wall of black ice appears and blocks the attack, protecting everyone. Itsuki and Iberia arrive, and the blonde tells them to leave the monster to the Double E duo. Itsuki tells Iberia to evacuate the civilians, while he uses his ice to block the flames. The awakened ones wonder if they're saviors, and Iberia says he'll be stronger one day. The blonde scolds them, and the man wonders how an awakened one defeated a beast. He then notices the ice armor, wondering if it's an artifact. Itsuki remembers Hento's words about his sphere being powerful but slow to charge. He should avoid using the sphere in normal battles and save it as a trump card. With a crowd nearby, he knows he can't use his sphere at all, so he decides he'll have to suppress the monster using only brute force. The protagonist dodges the golem's strike and counters with a blow to its chest. He then uses his thunder wave to leap over the monster's head. The creature tries to grab him in midair, but he dodges and lands another hit on its chin. With the golem stunned, he prepares his next attack, shrouded in electrical energy. A blue and black aura surrounds him, and he strikes the monster's chest with everything he has. The blow sends the creature flying, carving a huge crater in the middle of the street. The civilians are shocked, and one of them says the beast must have already been injured. One of the awakened ones turns pale, unable to believe the scene he just witnessed. He doesn't understand how a level 21 golem can't even fight back. After the dust settles, the awakened one wonders where the young man went. Another says it was thanks to him, but the leader admits he couldn't even follow his speed. Itsuki and Iberia run, and the hero thinks this isn't a good sign for the future. He looks at his stats and realizes that one way or another, he needs to increase his attack power. Iberia praises his speed, but Itsuki says it's useless without power. The blonde is left breathless, admitting he'd never thought of that before. Itsuki then tells him that if he wants more power, there's a good way to get it. Excited, Iberia says his father's warehouse is full of tools that boost attack power. He starts drooling, imagining what Itsuki would look like with one of those items. Itsuki stares at him, wondering about his creepy laugh. The blonde then tells him to come on, but Itsuki notices he's holding back, so he picks up his friend, warning him that if he gets tired, he won't be able to fight. Iberia yells that he's not ready yet as Itsuki carries him through the city. He complains about the speed, and Itsuki says they're already too late for the mission. After a while, they finally reach their destination, a house in the middle of the forest. Iberia celebrates their arrival, thinking his arms were about to fall off. He explains that his father prefers the forest because the city is too noisy. Itsuki activates his detection skill, and Iberia warns him the house is full of traps. With a smile, he says it's no problem, as long as his friend stays close. Iberia brags, but Itsuki thinks he can dodge the traps alone with his detection. But halfway there, the blonde accidentally steps on one of the traps. He looks embarrassed, and Itsuki wonders if this is really his house. The ground then starts to shake, and the mana fluctuations become much more intense. Suddenly, a giant iron golem emerges from the ground, preparing to attack. Itsuki is shocked, as he didn't expect to find humanoid tools out here. The golem then attacks Iberia, who tries to defend himself from the creature's powerful blow, but the blow is so strong it sends him flying towards where Itsuki was standing. The protagonist dives to the ground to dodge, and the golem's fist creates a crater. Itsuki gets angry because even a tool has more attack power than him, and it's indestructible. He asks Iberia if there's a way to stop the golem, and the blonde answers. He yells, telling his friend to aim for the stone right in the creature's chest. With a smile, Itsuki activates his thunder wave, saying this just got a lot easier. He dodges the golem's attack, and creates 2 electric clones to distract it. With the monster confused, he rushes forward, preparing to hit its weak spot. Using the distraction, he gets close and prepares to rip out the golem's core. With a single pull, he yanks the green stone from the creature's chest with his bare hand. Without its power source, the golem stops moving instantly, deactivated. Itsuki holds the stone, wondering if it will be enough for what he wants. But suddenly, Iberia shouts, telling someone named Yusuke-san to stop immediately. A mysterious man appears and attacks Itsuki, who blocks the blow with a dagger. The man is surprised, and Itsuki wonders when he managed to get so close. He introduces himself as Bokuto Yusuke, and says he thought they were bandits. Itsuki is confused because he couldn't sense the man's mana before the attack. During the distraction, Yusuke steals Itsuki's dagger, who then realizes his sword is gone. Iberia then introduces Itsuki, but his friend cuts him off, asking where his father is. Yusuke points behind them, warning them to be careful, as the master is there. Iberia's father appears, and the guard warns that he doesn't seem to be in a good mood. Iberia runs to him, shouting that he passed the tournament preliminaries. He brags, saying he came in 4th place and wants to choose a tool, but his father slaps him across the face, sending him flying with the force of the blow. Iberia is completely confused, asking why his father hit him like that. Furious, the old man yells, telling him to return the dragon armor he stole. He scolds his son, saying something irreversible could happen if he uses it too much. Annoyed, Iberia throws his bag on the ground and says he'll never use any of his father's things again. Itsuki then introduces himself as Tenma Itsuki, saying it's a pleasure to meet him. He explains that his master sent him for protection because of Balgar's prophecy. Aiden wonders why Hento would choose such an ordinary-looking young man as his disciple. But suddenly, his eyes widen as he notices something very strange about the boy. With a powerful aura, he asks if his level is fixed, and the screen confirms it. Aiden asks if he's using a karma artifact to fake his stats. With the answer, he understands why Hento asked him for that specific item. He says the boy's master always calculates everything, and that there must be a reward. But Itsuki is surprised, as Hento never mentioned an artifact in exchange. Aiden says he doesn't mind giving him the item, as he was just curious about the choice. Itsuki doesn't understand and asks why he called the artifact a failure. The old man explains that the item was a masterpiece that doubled attack on a critical hit, but suddenly, a crack formed in the crystal, completely changing its effect. Now, the item multiplies attack by 10, but it resets the critical hit rate with each level up. That's why the artifact is useless for a normal awakened one, but perfect for the boy. Itsuki then takes the crystal, which merges with his hand in a golden glow. Aiden says that since he doesn't level up, the artifact is ideal for him. Over time, his critical hit rate will reach 100%, and his attacks will become stronger. A golden aura surrounds him, and we see the name of his new skill. But he realizes the rate only increases against stronger enemies, which is a problem. The system screen shows the details of the new crystal's effect. Aiden says it seems the item is quite compatible with him, and Itsuki agrees. Suddenly, a flaming arrow hits the forest, and Aiden says it's impossible. A stone pillar then crashes down, and the impact sends out a shockwave. The guards who were outside are thrown back by the force of the explosion. Iberia comes out of the house, not understanding what's happening outside. Startled, he notices a giant green barrier has appeared around them. He doesn't understand the reason for the barrier and panics at the situation. Aiden wonders if it's a coincidence, since only the commanders knew his location. Yusuke shouts, warning that the calamity beasts are heading in their direction. With his eyes glowing, Itsuki senses something approaching at an incredible speed. He can see 6 creatures running through the forest trees, but he corrects himself immediately, realizing there are actually 8 of them coming to attack. A one-horned demon appears, and Itsuki yells that they've finally arrived. The creature tries to attack from behind, but the protagonist grabs it by the neck. Itsuki activates his ice wall, impaling the demon on a sharp spike. But the other demons don't stop, surrounding the protagonist with bloodlust. He thinks he could use Lotus Explosion to finish them off right now. He knows that Yusuke, who is also fighting, might be able to withstand the blow. The problem is that Aiden and Iberia are hiding in the shed right behind him. If he uses the explosion carelessly, the 2 of them could get caught in the fire. Surrounded by fallen enemies, he realizes he's much better suited to fighting alone. Suddenly, he senses another wave of mana, much more intense than the previous ones. Just then, a level 24, 2-horned guardian demon appears before him. The scene changes to the demon realm, where the first wave of the attack was sent from. They then discuss which of the 8 demon kings will lead the main attack force. The king says that thanks to his eye, he noticed the existence of an important person. One of the 8 kings, Enmaraku, wonders who will lead the attack, but the king decides to leave it to a general, so as not to risk destroying his eye. He then hands over command of the main force to the demon Enshokuma. The king remarks that he hasn't eaten a human in a long time, and must be starving. Suddenly, Iberia's scream echoes through the forest, and Itsuki wonders what happened. The 2-horned demon attacks him, but he defends himself, protecting his body. With the enemy in front of him, he decides he has no choice but to use that. Itsuki prepares to strike the demon, dodging its powerful blow. He sees a chance to increase his critical hit rate and prepares his purple sphere. The protagonist then fires the sphere, which flies at high speed toward the monster. The attack hits, and the system screen announces that his critical hit rate has increased. He tells Yusuke to handle the beast that entered the house, leaving the rest to him. Shrouded in lightning, Itsuki runs toward the cabin to help his friend. But inside the house, Iberia is already down and injured, his dragon armor gone. He knows the situation is bad, and if this keeps up, it's over for him. The demon grabs him by the neck and the blonde man screams desperately for Itsuki's help. But Aiden suddenly appears and smashes the monster's head with a sledgehammer. Iberia explains that his father isn't a fighter, but he isn't afraid of the beasts. The creature then turns, staring at the old man with a look of pure rage. With a shove, Aiden throws the beast out of the house and says the rest is up to them. Itsuki then arrives, lightning enveloping his body, ready for a fight. He activates his ice wall and defends against the creature's claw attack. Next, he pierces the monster's chest, sending blood flying everywhere. He apologizes for being late, and Aiden asks about the situation outside. Itsuki explains that he suspects Yusuke has already taken care of all the other beasts. Outside, Iberia and Aiden are shocked to see the man standing among the demons. But Yusuke warns them not to let their guard down, as more beasts will keep coming. He says he'll destroy the barrier, but if any beasts get through, it's on them. But Itsuki interrupts, telling him to stay and protect the other two. Aiden notices his eyes, realizing there's no fear, only a thirst for battle. With that, he decides to trust the boy and leaves the barrier's destruction to him. Yusuke warns that beasts from a green barrier are at least level 250. With a glint in his eyes, Itsuki prepares to leave, lightning crackling from his body. He smiles, saying he can finally fight with everything he's got, without holding back. Iberia offers to go, but his father stops him, saying he can't. He explains that they live in completely different worlds, and that it's pathetic. The blonde doesn't understand, saying they're a team and they cover each other's weaknesses. But his father shouts, saying he's not supporting him, he's just dead weight. He warns that if he keeps this up, he'll get Tenma killed. Aiden explains that Tenma is special, and that no one from his generation even comes close. He asks if Iberia has ever seen his eyes when he faces a calamity beast. Meanwhile, Itsuki detects 5 enemies, and his mana is restored to its maximum. He's surrounded by the demons, but remains unfazed by their numbers. With a shout, he tells them to get out of his way, an electric aura surrounding him. He then activates his Lotus Explosion, defeating all 5 enemies at once. With this victory, he knows he won't let any beast get near the others. Iberia looks toward the forest, seeing the smoke from the explosion that just occurred. He and Yusuke wonder where it came from, deducing that Itsuki found more beasts. Yusuke thinks that an explosion on that scale isn't something a level 0 could pull off. Itsuki finally reaches the green barrier and realizes the beasts inside are stronger. He tries to use his mana detection, but the barrier completely blocks his ability. Then, he remembers that the color green means the beasts are level 26 to 50. With a lotus symbol in his hand, he thinks about the massive amount of experience he's about to gain. With that, he decides to summon his Shinigami, the Death Hound, which emerges from the shadows. We see the creature's stats, a B-rank wolf with the ability to track mana. Itsuki pets the wolf, promising to give it all the experience points, but he warns it not to touch any of the beasts until it receives the order. With a menacing look, he declares that every beast in there is his prey. Ageha informs her father that the awakened guards have finally arrived to help with the defense. A man introduces himself as Kei Chirijima, a first-class savior who will protect her. Hento asks about Akira, and Ageha says he was guarding the area's perimeter. She explains that he was on his way, but she lost contact with him. Ageha worries he might be in trouble, since he's one of the pillars. Hento then tells her to keep trying, as only a special-class savior can fight. But Chirijima says she's overestimating the special-class saviors, who are only human. He believes there isn't much of a difference, and that he can also defeat a strong beast. But Hento cuts him off, saying it's good to be confident, but not that much. With a powerful aura, he warns that Chirijima only thinks that way because he's never truly fought. Suddenly, a beast falls from the sky, and he shouts, warning that the attack has begun. Hento looks at the portal, saying the enemy has finally arrived for battle. Chirijima says that if a special class doesn't show up, they can't be counted on. With a determined look, he vows to prove he's just as capable as a special class. The scene ends by showing us a green sphere of energy glowing in the middle of the night. Itsuki enters the barrier, noticing the landscape isn't much different from the outside, but he feels a strange aura coming from a pillar of light, which makes him uncomfortable. He activates his detection skill, but can't sense anything outside the barrier, as if they were separate spaces. His mana recovers, and he gets an idea of where the 5 enemies are located. He then orders his Death Hound to stay put, telling it to eat any beasts that try to escape. With a smile, he activates his Thunder Wave, ready to start moving through the area. 2 dog-like beasts run through the forest, preparing to attack the intruder. But Itsuki dashes past them with absurd speed, leaving them completely confused. He then creates an ice wall and throws himself against the demons, trapping them. With an electric sword, he cuts down the beasts, defeating both enemies at once. He keeps advancing and defeats the others, his lightning bolt striking all the demons. But the last one, the strongest, faces him, preparing for the final confrontation. Itsuki then activates his piercing sphere, aiming right for the middle of the monster's forehead. The sphere hits the target dead on, piercing the demon's head with ease. With that, his critical hit rate increases to 3%, and the fight ends. Itsuki calculates that with 3%, he should land a critical hit about every 100 attacks. He approaches the Pillar of Light, noting that it's the first time he's seen one up close. With a determined look, he thinks that if he breaks the pillar, the barrier should disappear. But suddenly, his detection pings, warning him that another enemy has been found. With lightning surrounding his body, he prepares to fight. As there's still one left, the creature launches several black spikes from the ground, trying to pierce the protagonist. But he narrowly dodges, thinking that if he hadn't sensed the mana, he would have been a goner. On the ground, he realizes he would have been impaled if he hadn't been alert. He then sees tentacles hiding behind the pillar and understands everything. The creature then reveals itself, showing it's a very different kind of beast from the others. The green barrier begins to fade, revealing the night sky outside. Back at the house, Iberia looks at his father, his face full of guilt. Yusuke warns him to stay inside, as not even Tenma might be able to handle everything. He tries to calm the blonde boy, but Iberia feels like dead weight in this situation. Outside, Yusuke asks if he could beat a level 26 beast. Yusuke tells him not to get down, because even he didn't have that kind of courage at his age. Iberia is surprised, and Yusuke explains that the difference between the barriers is huge. He says the gray beasts have no intelligence and just repeat a cycle of destruction. But in the green barriers, the creatures are intelligent, just like normal humans. Suddenly, a beast in blue armor appears, a level 34 general. Yusuke comments that few young people of their generation could defeat this beast. He explains that Iberia isn't dead weight because he's immature, but for another reason. It's that Tenma is just too strong. He can even speak their language. The beast asks what he's muttering about, if he's perhaps begging for his life. It calls him a coward and says he can't stop trembling with fear in front of it. But Itsuki smiles, saying he's just excited because he wanted to ask something. With a sadistic look, the beast says it will grant his last wish if he likes. And with his eyes blazing, Itsuki asks if the creature can feel pain. The beast says a mere human can't make it feel pain and calls him bold. With a leap, the creature warns that it specializes in causing others agony. Its tentacles lash out like blades, slicing the ground and carving craters in the forest. Itsuki dodges the attacks, moving at high speed amidst the destruction. With one strike, he severs a tentacle, creating an opening to counterattack. He wonders if it was a direct hit, but then he notices the monster's mana expanding even further. The tentacles get faster, and he can barely dodge the slicing attacks. But he knows that when it comes to speed, he still has the upper hand in this battle. The problem is, without raw power, he can hardly damage the enemy. The beast can't believe a level 0 has this much speed and asks for his level. It says it doesn't matter since he's still just a slightly faster insect. The creature warns him that if he takes a single hit, it's an instant checkmate. Itsuki charges forward, slicing another tentacle and preparing for the final blow. He dodges just in time, the tentacle grazing past his ear, nearly hitting him. Throwing his arm back, he manages to block the attack, defending himself from the blade. He successfully defends, but the impact of the blow sends him flying into a tree. With a tentacle caught on his arm, he braces himself to counter the monster's attack. Itsuki then challenges the beast, telling it to bring its best shot. The creature taunts him, saying his electricity is only good for boosting his speed. But Itsuki realizes overmimesis won't activate, as the tentacles are part of its body. He keeps striking the monster, wondering how many hits he's landed so far, but the creature says it's useless, as his mana is nearly depleted. With his red eyes, he realizes that if he keeps this up, his speed will drop. He decides he needs to increase the frequency of his attacks to land a critical hit. With his electric aura, he rushes in and starts unleashing a flurry of blows on the monster. He thinks that he has to keep attacking to increase the chance of a critical hit. The creature strikes him with a tentacle, but he endures the pain and keeps attacking. But the monster impales him with one of its tentacles, severely wounding him in the process. The beast calls him a fool for throwing himself into an attack so recklessly. It then taunts him, asking why he isn't making it feel any pain. The creature is surprised he's still alive, noting that his defense is quite high. But Itsuki smirks, and the system announces his next attack will be a 100% critical hit. With a single strike, he lands a devastating critical hit on the creature's chest. The beast screams in pain, unable to believe the power it just felt from the attack. The blow is so powerful it sends the beast flying into the trees, defeating it for good. Fallen on the ground, it wonders what just happened and where all that power came from. Itsuki wipes the blood from his mouth, realizing the power was greater than he had imagined. With this victory, he feels a pleasure and satisfaction he has never felt before. He notices his wound but realizes he's not feeling any pain, even though he's bleeding. With smoke coming from his mouth, he says he's feeling incredible right now. He approaches the beast and asks if it felt any pain from his strike. He places his hand on the monster's head, which asks what he plans to do. With a sadistic look, he says the beast he's faced before had no intelligence. He squeezes the creature's head, saying its scream of pain is a wonderful sound. The beast panics, screaming that he's not a human, but a demon. With a final blow, he crushes the monster's head, increasing his critical hit rate. He turns to the creature's body, saying it's finally been finished off. But as the adrenaline fades, he begins to feel the intense pain from his wounds. He then looks around and sees the barrier has become transparent, with no more beasts in sight. With the area clear, he knows all that's left is to destroy the pillar. With one hit, he easily shatters the monument, thinking it was more fragile than he expected. Exhausted, he sits down, thinking he needs to check one more thing before heading back. He looks up at the sky and calls for his death hound in a weak voice. The Shinigami appears before him, and he tells the creature to show its face. The wolf approaches, and Itsuki asks if it's gotten bigger than before. He looks closer, and realizes it's not just the size that's changed. The system screen shows that the wolf has leveled up 3 times, and gained new stats. He understands it wasn't his imagination, and that its body grows with its level. With a smile, he wonders just how big the creature will get. The scene focuses on the sky, as the green barrier completely disappears into the forest. Iberia celebrates, shouting that the barrier is gone and Itsuki actually did it. Yusuke is impressed. He destroyed the barrier in 10 minutes, an incredible time. But Itsuki is exhausted. His body has reached its limit from the blood loss. He commands his death hound to follow his mana trail and lead it to Iberia. The wolf howls and starts running through the forest, following its master's orders. Suddenly, a beast's howl echoes through the forest, catching everyone's attention. Yusuke doesn't understand. The barrier was already destroyed, so there shouldn't be anything else. He tells Iberia to go back to the room, preparing for another intense battle. But Iberia recognizes the howl, saying he's heard that sound somewhere before. The creature approaches with sharp claws and a look of pure fury. Yusuke readies his sword, saying the sound is getting closer and closer. A giant wolf appears, and he says that if it's a beast, he'll have to cut it down. Iberia then recognizes the creature, saying it's the hound Itsuki claimed as a Shinigami. He shouts, trying to warn Yusuke that the wolf is their friend's Shinigami. The man attacks anyway, and the wolf slams him to the ground with one blow. Yusuke is shocked to see Itsuki on the ground, brought by Tenma's Shinigami. He doesn't understand, as he thought only Shinigami users could have one. Iberia runs to help, while Yusuke thinks that Itsuki is a complete enigma. He kneels, asking what happened, since his friend is covered in blood. But Itsuki just asks to rest for a bit, then closes his eyes and passes out instantly. Iberia panics, screaming for him and not knowing what to do. Yusuke calms him down, saying he's not dead and doesn't need to cry like that. The blonde is relieved, wondering if his friend really hadn't died. Yusuke points, showing that he's still breathing despite his serious injuries. He then tells Iberia to use his bandages to treat their friend's wounds. Iberia thinks that he might never catch up to him in power, but there are things only he can do. He explains that his class is a wind elementalist, focused on support. The screen displays his gift, which reduces damage and increases healing speed. With a determined look, he says he'll use his gift as many times as needed. With a green aura, Iberia prepares to use his healing skill, Healing Wind. He sends the energy to Itsuki, willing him to get better soon for the sake of their duo. Itsuki remains in a cold sweat, seemingly trapped in a terrible nightmare. The scene changes, and a purple barrier expands near the Izumi residence. Just then, one of the stone monuments comes crashing down, destroying part of the house. Ageha finds Chirijima on the ground and screams his name, desperate at the sight. She tries to heal him with her butterfly, but he can only tell her to run. He warns her that the monster is too strong, and that not even humanity stands a chance against it. The creature reveals itself, a level 81 Ox Warrior, extremely powerful. Defeated, Chirijima begs for Izumi and his daughter to escape in time. The Ox Warrior then faces Hento, identifying him by his strange and unique clothes. The beast celebrates finding its target, and Hento is relieved that he is the objective. Suddenly, a brilliant white explosion of energy illuminates the entire area. Ageha screams in despair for her father, who was caught in the middle of the blast. With a tear in his eye, Chirijima thinks that this is it, that it's all finally over. From the dust, Hento emerges, saying he's late to the party. With his red eyes glowing, Akira arrives, ready to join the battle. He apologizes for being late, and says to leave the giant monster to him. The Ox Warrior scoffs, saying he's pretty cocky for someone who just arrived. Wounded, Chirijima shouts a warning to be careful, as the creature is very strong. But Akira blocks the blow with his arm, and retaliates with a strike to the monster's chest. The blow is so powerful it pierces the beast's body, sending blood flying. Chirijima is dumbfounded, Unable to believe the scene he just witnessed, he wonders if this is the true power of a special class savior. He thought they were human, but Akira is a monster with absurd strength. Ageha celebrates the victory, but Akira warns that the real fight is just beginning. Suddenly, the barrier that was purple changes color, turning completely red. Inside, a demon wonders how Lord Enshiruma will play with humanity. He reveals himself as the Red Flame Demon King and says he would love to watch. Behind him, a level 49 white Oni appears, preparing to attack. The Red Flame Demon King warns them to do nothing, as their mission is to capture one person. Then, the Frost Demon King explains they were sent to the same barrier so they wouldn't stand out. Lord Enshikuma's red barrier will attract the strongest humans, serving as a distraction. With that, the other demons decide to head to their destination, while Enshokuma fights the humans. One of them explains that Lord Linga's magic eye will guide them to the target. It turns out the magic eye is in the same location as the target, who is, in this case, Itsuki. Our hero then suddenly wakes up, in a cold sweat, sensing the presence of the magic eye. Lying in bed, Itsuki starts having a flashback to his traumatic childhood. He remembers telling his mother he found a beast that could feel pain. With an innocent smile, he celebrates crushing the creature's skull with his bare hands. But his mother appears, telling him to stop that attitude at once. She warns him that there are more important things than getting revenge on the beasts. The woman says he shouldn't use his power for revenge, but to protect. With a dark expression, the boy shouts that it's completely impossible for him. He declares that he'll never forgive the beast that killed his mother and father. With eyes red with rage, he swears he will kill every single one of them. His mother just watches him with a sad look, not knowing what to do. She says she has to go, and her body starts to dissolve into particles of light. Desperate, Itsuki yells, asking where she's going and that he has so much to tell her. She reaches out her hand and begs him not to be consumed by hatred. He tries to reach her, but her body fades away and all he can do is scream for her. Their fingers touch for a moment before she disappears completely into the light. Alone in the darkness, Itsuki reaches out his hand, a look of pure despair on his face. With a tear in his eye, he sits up, feeling the weight of loss and loneliness. A mysterious voice then mocks him, saying that crying for the dead is pathetic. The boy turns around, his eye red with rage, trying to see who's there. With a furious shout, he glares at the figure, recognizing the evil presence. He yells that it's Linga, the demon of ruin, who's mocking him for crying. With his body transformed, Itsuki screams, calling the demon a bastard with pure hatred. He lunges forward, vowing to kill him, a red aura of fury surrounding him. Linga taunts him, telling him not to be in a hurry, because he's going to make him suffer. With a single blow, the demon throws him to the ground, showing him what true despair is. Itsuki falls amidst shards of glass, screaming that he'll kill Linga no matter what. But he suddenly wakes up, his red eye glowing, realizing it was a nightmare. He looks around and sees Iberia sleeping beside him, understanding it was a dream. But he feels a terrible pain in his eyes, not understanding why. He looks in the mirror, and his left eye glows red with a sinister aura. Itsuki wakes up and notices his wounds have been healed thanks to the bandages. He looks to his side and sees Iberia sleeping, glad his friend was able to rest. To avoid waking him, he makes a shushing gesture to his death hound, but the wolf opens its mouth as if to bark, sending the protagonist into a panic. Itsuki turns pale, cursing his luck for the situation he's in. Iberia wakes up startled, thinking it's a beast and that he needs to protect his friend. Itsuki thinks that a breeze like that wouldn't even tickle a real beast, but the blonde man sees him and celebrates, shouting that he finally woke up. He hugs him tightly, and Itsuki asks how long he was out. Iberia says it's been 3 hours, and Itsuki asks if the other two are okay. With a smile, the blonde man replies that no beasts have shown up since he passed out. Itsuki remembers the dream, thinking that Linga's words are bothering him. On the second day of the prophecy, he gets dressed, knowing he can't let his guard down. Iberia is happy to see him recovered, and Itsuki says that reinforcements should be arriving. He then opens the door, saying he's going to check the situation with Yusuke first. Iberia asks for the Shinigami's name, and he says it's just Death Hound. He offers to pick a name, but Itsuki tells him he's not a user. Blonde man is disappointed, and Itsuki thinks there's no way he's letting him name it. Yusuke looks at the burnt bodies, realizing that Iberia used his real ability. Itsuki asks if he's a healer type, and Iberia says he also uses defensive skills. He asks Yusuke if any more saviors have arrived, but the answer is no. The man then questions his reason for asking, with a suspicious look on his face. Itsuki explains that they're deep in the forest, and that it's strange. He knows Yusuke has a point, but he feels that something is very wrong. A dark aura begins to spread through the forest, as if something evil is approaching. We then see a group of saviors, running at high speed through the trees. One of them asks how much further, and the other says just a few more kilometers. They celebrate that they're getting a promotion, but complain about the target's remote location. Suddenly, A woman with pink hair yells, telling them all to stop at once. But it's too late, and one of the saviors steps on a trap on the ground. She warns that she felt something strange, as if a presence was approaching. From the shadows, a voice emerges, saying she finally noticed him there. Suddenly, a beast attacks, and one of the saviors defeats it with a single sword strike. But then, two giant creatures appear, asking where they're going in such a hurry. With an evil smile, the Red Flame Demon King asks if they aren't all heading to the same place. Amidst the flames, we see the skeleton of one of the saviors, completely burned. The Fire Demon King comments that humans are quite fragile after all. He then turns to the White Oni, asking if he has finished the job. The creature opens its hand, which is covered in blood, showing that it has already taken care of everyone. He says the humans were crushed, and the Demon King calls him cruel. The woman wonders where they came from, since there are no barriers nearby. With a fireball in his hand, the Demon King explains they traveled a long way to get here. She begins to cry, desperate about the situation and afraid of what will happen. But the Frost Demon King warns him not to kill the humans for now. Ice starts to form on his body, and he doesn't understand what's happening. The other warns that if he ignores his orders again, the consequences will be severe. Desperate, the Fire King begs him to release the spell before his body freezes. The ice then shatters, and he is free from the spell that bound him. He engulfs himself in flames, saying he thought he was going to freeze to death right there. The woman looks at them, wondering if they will finally let her go. The Fire Demon King wonders if the woman has any special power, but the other explains that he just wants to test the new ability Lord Linga gave him. With shadow tentacles, he captures her and begins to envelop her with his energy. She screams in pain as her body is corrupted by the demon's dark aura. When the transformation is complete, she stands still, her face covered by shadows. The Fire Demon wonders if she died, but the other explains what happened. With red eyes and a crystal on her forehead, the woman awakens her new powers. He explains that she has undergone demonization, and now she is on their side. Kneeling, she asks for Lord Spectral King's orders. He tells her to hide her identity and wait for the day Lord Linga descends. She also needs to report that she was the only survivor, thanks to the sacrifice of the others. With her mission assigned, he tells her to go, and the woman obeys immediately. With her face covered by shadow, she turns, ready to carry out her new task. She looks back one last time, and the demons watch her walk away. With incredible speed, she runs through the forest, now an ally of the demons. The Fire Demon questions the reason for recruiting someone so weak for their army. The other explains that tens of thousands of humans have also been demonized. They will play a crucial role when Lord Linga finally unifies the world. The Frost King then tells the others to stop fooling around and follow him on their mission. On the second day of the prophecy, the Iron Golem is standing still, like a guard at the house. Yusuke comments that its stats are equivalent to a level 30 awakened one. Iberia asks where Tenma is, and Yusuke explains that he went to the workshop. In the workshop, Aiden asks about the critical hit he landed on the beast. Itsuki explains that it was 3%, but after the fight it went up to 4. The old man says he was lucky to get a critical hit with such a low rate. Itsuki then explains that after the blow, he felt as if he were omnipotent. Aiden stops what he's doing, turning around, surprised by the boy's revelation. He describes a sensation of heightened senses, but with complete calm and control. With a smile, Itsuki confirms that's exactly the feeling he had. Aiden then says he's surprised, as the boy managed to enter a flow state. Aiden explains that a flow state happens when you are completely immersed in something. Itsuki is confused, and the old man sums it up, saying it's when you get in the zone. He gives examples like a painter, an athlete, or even a very focused student. He explains that in this state, your senses become much sharper than normal, and on top of that, your stats and skills increase by 120%. Aiden scolds him, saying that few people in the world can enter this state. Itsuki is surprised, as he didn't know the requirements were so strict. The old man explains that not even the mighty Wajin-Tei can enter it at will. He says he only managed to enter his flow state after 2 years, and for Itsuki to have achieved it in a month is truly impressive. But he stops talking and asks if the boy is actually listening to the conversation. Itsuki warns that 3 individuals with immense mana are approaching the house. He feels the mana wave is more like a beast's, not an awakened one's. With a bad feeling, he says he's going to check on the situation just in case. He thinks that he already cleared the barrier and hopes it's all just his imagination. With a push, Itsuki opens the workshop door, going out to check on the situation. Iberia is glad he's out, but Yusuke asks why he looks so tense. He explains that he felt a wave of mana and thought a beast was nearby, but Iberia says there are no barriers, and with the golem they can handle it. Suddenly, a mysterious attack destroys the iron golem in the blink of an eye. Smoke clears, revealing the metal creature completely in pieces on the ground. Yusuke is stunned, as the golem was defeated before it could even react to the attack. Then, the three demons appear, and the spectral king says defeating them will be a piece of cake. On the second day of the prophecy, a dark, red aura hangs over the forest. Itsuki realizes these demons are on a whole different level from the previous ones. He's never felt mana as overwhelming as the leaders of that group. The spectral king says he'll capture the target and leaves the rest to them. He warns them just to be careful not to damage the magic eye in the process. The other two demons agree, saying they won't even break a sweat. Itsuki is shocked, realizing the beasts were communicating with each other, but the spectral king warns him that he won't get past him that easily. Suddenly, Itsuki appears in front of Iberia, with Yusuke right behind him. Yusuke is stunned, wondering how the kid got there so fast. With his eyes red with rage, Itsuki realizes the enemy is incredibly fast. He yells that he'll stop him no matter what, and that he won't get near Aiden. The spectral king then creates a wall of ice, preparing for the attack. Yusuke is blocked by the wall and wonders what that ice barrier is. He tries to break it, but realizes the wall is incredibly dense and resistant. Iberia screams, warning Yusuke to be careful as the white Oni is behind him. With his sword, Yusuke defends against the creature's attack, grabbing its hand, but the Oni throws him away with a single blow, defeating him easily. Worried, Itsuki yells his name, afraid of what might have happened, but the Fire Demon King warns that he's in no position to worry. He then launches his red flame bullet, an A-rank skill, in his direction. Itsuki tells Iberia to get out of the way and creates his ice wall to try and protect himself, but the fireball pierces through the ice and hits him, causing a massive explosion. His overmimesis activates, and the analysis of the A-rank skill begins immediately. The screen shows the progress, and he's surprised by how strong the skill is. With his arms burned, he thinks he put too much faith in his ice wall. The Demon King mocks him, saying he was a fool for thinking the ice would hold. But he looks at the boy and wonders if he might be the magic eye. Burned, Itsuki gets up, with the system showing he's still level 0. The demon smiles, saying he's just a human and can be incinerated without any trouble. With his clothes torn, Itsuki summons his Death Hound for battle. The demon scoffs, asking if he plans to fight 2-on-1. He then unleashes a blast of fire, saying he doesn't stand a chance. But Itsuki orders the wolf to protect Aiden, preparing to fight alone. The demon is surprised that he dodged the attack, not understanding his strategy. He notices the Shinigami, wondering if the creature is heading for the target. He then looks at Itsuki, wondering if he thinks he can beat him alone. Itsuki realizes that if he plays the victim, he can buy time for the analysis. The system screen shows that the enemy's skill analysis has reached 36%, but he can't stand it and decides he won't act like a coward in front of a beast. With a sadistic smile, he faces the demon and asks if he has a problem. Wreathed in lightning, he yells that the demon looks pretty pathetic too, after all. The creature becomes furious, calling him a despicable and arrogant human for his audacity. He creates a pillar of fire, saying he'll turn him to ash right now. But Itsuki notices he got bigger, but his speed didn't increase at all. He realizes the demon is a long-range type and that he can win. The demon is surprised, not understanding what the kid is planning to do. With incredible speed, Itsuki closes the distance and lands a blow on the enemy. The demon just watches him with a disdainful look, unfazed by the blow. With a confident smile, he prepares to counter the boy's attack. He creates a shield of flames, which blocks Itsuki's attack with ease. The protagonist wonders what that is and realizes it's a fire shield. The demon mocks him, asking if he thought he didn't know his weaknesses. He then hurls a fireball, which hits Itsuki head-on and sends him flying. Lying on the ground, he thinks that's it, that he finally got him. Itsuki is thrown against a tree, his arms completely burned and injured. He blames himself for being careless against such an intelligent beast. The demon says he completely fooled him, and that he's no level 0. Burned and injured, Itsuki stands up, radiating a dark and menacing aura. The demon asks if he still wants to fight, a sadistic smile on his face. He warns that it would be easier if he just stayed on the ground and accepted defeat. But Itsuki glares at him, saying the analysis is taking too long because it's A rank. On the second day of the prophecy, at Aiden Hill, we see the blacksmith's workshop. The Frost Demon King praises the old man, saying he's crafted many powerful artifacts. He calls him the most talented craftsman of the human race, recognizing his worth. But Aiden scoffs, and the demon says he won't kill him, as long as he's useful. The old man refuses, saying he's not the type to take orders from anyone. With a knife in hand, he prepares to fight, an aura of rage surrounding him. Ice begins to cover his body as he prepares to use a powerful skill. The demon is surprised, as the ice skill is at least A rank, but he warns that it's useless, as the decision to live or die is his to make. Hiding, Iberia panics, unsure if he should launch a surprise attack. Suddenly, a suit of armor in the corner of the room starts moving on its own. The Death Hound appears out of nowhere, and Iberia recognizes it as Itsuki's Shinigami. The wolf lunges at the demon with sharp teeth and a furious gaze. The Frost King faces the creature, unfazed by the wolf's surprise attack. With a single blow, he freezes the Death Hound, trapping it in a prison of ice. The ice trapping the Death Hound shatters, freeing the creature to fight. The Frost King wonders if reinforcements have finally arrived to spoil the fun. Iberia is in shock, as not even Itsuki's Shinigami can get close to him. He thinks there's no way to win, and that he needs to find Itsuki for help, but he remembers his father's words, that he would only be a dead weight. Iberia recalls the state Itsuki was in, all burned and injured in the forest. He knows that if he goes after him now, he might put him in even more danger. With a determined look, he decides he'll save his father alone, no matter the cost. He then remembers the dragon armor and knows he might have a chance. With that, he runs to the room, saying the armor must be under the bed. He yells, shouting that he's going to save his father and for him to hold on. The Frost King realizes someone was hiding and calls them a coward. He then turns to Aiden, saying he will take him to his fate. Outside, the Fire King decides to leave the cleanup to the other two and prepares himself. Itsuki, injured, uses his ice wall to cover his burned leg and move. Itsuki activates his thunder wave, throwing himself into the enemy's fiery blast. The demon mocks him, saying his speed has dropped because of his injuries. He then prepares for another attack, asking how long he can hold out. Itsuki defends with both hands, preparing to counter the blow. The demon then unleashes a blast of fire, with several fireballs heading his way. With a determined gaze, Itsuki faces the attack, breaking into a cold sweat under the pressure. He finds himself surrounded by fireballs with nowhere to run or escape. Even with his speed, he knows he can't dodge so many attacks. He thinks that in his current state, there's no way he can dodge them all. As the explosion nears, he thinks it's over, that there's nothing more he can do. The system shows the analysis has reached 90%, almost complete. He's hit head-on by the flames, and the analysis continues to climb rapidly. As his body burns, he remembers the last time he felt that heat. The analysis reaches 96%. And the explosion rages on. Near the end, he says, more flames. Just like that time. We see the image of his mother, half of her body dissolving in flames. The demon concentrates its power, preparing a massive fireball to attack. With a shout, he launches the red flame bullet, wanting to end the fight. Itsuki wonders if he made it in time, as a blue barrier appears before him. The skill analysis finally reaches 100%, and the explosion erupts. The demon is confused, wondering what that blue energy sphere is. With the analysis complete, Itsuki gains Black Ice Wall level 3. His stats increase by 50, and all his injuries are healed instantly. Now, he knows he no longer needs to fear the enemy's fireballs. The demon doesn't understand, as the attack didn't even scratch his defensive barrier. An ice lotus flower appears, and the demon recognizes it with a look of surprise. He realizes he already knew the boy was stronger than he seemed. With a fiery aura, he warns that playtime is over, and it's time to end this. But he stops suddenly, eyes wide, not believing what he's seeing. Itsuki emerges from the smoke, his body fully recovered and surrounded by a dark aura. He also reveals he was planning to leave the demon for later and go save Aiden. But he says the enemy's flames brought back some very bad memories, and with a look of pure hatred, he declares he will crush the demon first.